Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, November 3rd, 2024. Actually, it's the 4th, isn't it? I can't count apparently. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes at 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in attendance in the council chambers in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of this land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. I note the passing today of Senator Murray Sinclair, who led Canada's work in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I acknowledge on behalf of this council our condolences to his family and pay tribute to a remarkable Canadian. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. Let us move to item 5 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in the community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. Colleagues, do any of you wish to make a declaration this evening? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. Yes, I declare on item 8.2, the public meeting to consider the subdivision, the Bray subdivision, and the corresponding bylaw 12.3 and then 17.1, as I'm a signing officer of a corporation that's an abutting landowner.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a declaration this evening? All right, seeing no such indication, as chair of this meeting, I will manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, I will certainly advise and we will try to recruit help from our team. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of this focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for consideration to approve the agenda as follows. Let's pull it out. That the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Blazek, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's turn next then to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and or individual action may do so. There are 20 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Colleagues, anything to extract here or corrections to be made to the minutes? Let's start with Councillor Rothwell and then followed by Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Greetings, council, members of staff, and public. Items 7.11, the notice of adoption of an official plan by the Corporation of the County of Perth, as well as item 7.14, which is the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Please.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Let's see what Councillor Andreessen has for us.
Good morning, or good morning. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, council, staff, and residents this evening. Actually, I was hoping to point out 7.14, but Councillor Rothwell's already brought that to our attention, so that's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's use our usual procedure and consider these items that are extracted first. So, Councillor Rothwell, let's have 7.11.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate this. As was noted by yourself there at our last meeting, that the county did adopt the new official plan, which has been in the works for some 7 years. It's been a long process. I want to express a concern that we had a resolution of this council back from July requesting county planning staff have a presentation to this council regarding some issues of concern to North Perth, potential policy changes and so on. And unfortunately, I don't believe that we had correspondence, at least council wasn't aware of any correspondence back as to why that request was not fulfilled. Nevertheless, I do know from news reports that one issue in particular brought the attention was the Eden Grove development up on Road 164, and I know there was some discussion at County Council on this matter. The planning consultant for the property owners did make a request to carry forward the policy. Nevertheless, County Council chose to remove the existing policy and place the property in the agriculture designation. I am personally concerned about that step. As to whether the county planning department feels that property should revert back to agriculture and agriculture policies when we've got a significant infrastructure that's been there since the 1960s. And we've had no less than 3 approved official plan amendments on that site and one that's in the works. So frankly, I'm really dismayed that we did not, this council did not receive a presentation regarding such an action. And there's really little or nothing that this council can do in terms of changing of policy at this point, as I understand, because there's been significant changes on the Planning Act regarding appeals. But nevertheless, I think it's still important that this council be informed as to any other changes which we may not necessarily be aware of. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a requested action, Councillor Rotherley?
In short, I believe that a further letter requesting the county planning staff to give a presentation to this council and in fact to let this council know the planning rationale as to that was the justification for taking away an existing policy which is would have allowed for the redevelopment of that site. Thank you.
I think for us to sort of address this, we probably should consider a resolution. I think the clerk, I saw you taking notes, so it looked like you had some idea of where to go with this one in terms of a resolution. But I gather the gist of it is we're going to extend an invitation to the County of Perth's Planning Department to present to this council, including providing insight into the choices related to Eden Grove and further to identify any other properties that may have been affected through the adoption of the new official plan. Does that sound about right?
Yes, it does. And just for reference, this goes back to our July 8th council meeting where it's resolution number 248-07.24. And the resolution that was carried or was passed was the Council of Municipality of North Perth directs staff to request a presentation from the Perth County Planning Department regarding the proposed official plan, including significant policy changes which are of concern to North Perth and mapping issues at an upcoming council meeting. That's the specific wording that this council adopted back in July.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a new, like an additional resolution. Now that the OP is passed, I think that one is largely been unheard. So now we have a new resolution. I assume you're the mover for this one. That's okay. Can I call for a seconder? I'm prepared to second that. Councillor Nordum. Okay, thank you. Any discussion or debate about this one? Clerks, are you with us on this one? You've got something that we can slap up here for the vote? All right, let's have a vote then. And that is carried. Thank you. Did you want to tackle item 7.14, or do you want Councillor Andreessen to take
Perhaps
the
it
lead
would
on
be
that?
fair, Mayor Todd, I believe it would be fair to have Councillor Andreessen address that. Thank
All
you.
right, Councillor Andreessen, you get a shot here.
Good evening now, right? Yes, thank you. Item 7.14 from our consent agenda is regarding the Good Roads program here in Ontario, and they're proposing to establish an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. And according to the notes in the package, Good Roads has designed a multifaceted rural safety program, and they are targeting different municipalities that have dangerous roads, and they're willing to perform road safety audits and install modern safety infrastructure that prevents serious injuries and saves lives. This program is designed to be cost effective while also providing rural municipalities with a direct means for addressing risk associated with these roadways. And they're proposing to partner with the Ministry of Transportation to fund this. And I was wondering if we as a municipality here in North Perth could endorse and support this and send a resolution to the province to support this program offered, or at least the program that Good Roads is proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind if I ask a question of staff before we consider our next step here? So perhaps CAO Snell or Mr. Ropp, any comments on the perceived implications to the municipality, including costs for endorsing or sending a letter of endorsement for this particular object? Mr. Ropp has recently joined the staff, and I'm sure we just made him awfully uncomfortable. Press the button, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Kastenberg and councillors. In relation to the question, yes, there would be cost to implement such safety devices. Typically, they're referring to roadside safety systems that are meant to keep vehicles within the roadway and to reduce the types of damage to occupants and vehicles.
Okay, so the resolution, I think, is coming from the Good Roads Association, and it's advocating for a program in which the province comes to the table, but it doesn't actually specify that the province comes to the table with a 10% investment or 100% investment, if I'm following the bouncing ball. Is that your read of the material, or?
Yes, in my read, it doesn't exactly say what they're asking the province to come forward with. However, it'd be interesting to see if the province would consider this type of program, and if they would indeed do some kind of funding for it. And it's targeting our most dangerous roads. It's not all the roads; it's the most dangerous roads. So it would be nice to have some of our key roads definitely have some more safety measures applied to them.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment, Mr. Ropp or CAO Snow?
Yeah, just one more through your mayor. It definitely does start with the roadside safety assessment to identify these roads and using factory-driven data to identify them before any type of measures can be implemented.
And can we comment on our state of readiness there? Like, are we able to do those assessments? Do we have the data easy to pull for trying to find some of these worst roads in our community?
Through your mayor, I don't believe I have that answer tonight. Usually it's something that would be done through a third-party consult to identify the whole municipality, not just try and focus on select roads, but we want to identify and look at the entire road network.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions on this matter before we work with Councillor Andreessen to get a motion on the table, if she so wants? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Councillor Andreessen, for bringing that forward, and welcome. One of the issues that I know Perth County has undertaken was certainly automated speed signs within our hamlets and villages, and frankly, it's been what I believe to be a good indication because it's not only telling the drivers the speed they're going, it also has a storage of information, how fast truly people are going through our hamlets and villages. So yes, they are rural roads and so on, and they're all on our county roads. Nevertheless, it's still an issue of concern, and the equation here is that high speed equals greater potential for danger or endangerment of decreased safety. So anything that is like that, but even a step higher, which is the automated speed enforcement, which we've talked around this council table about, some rural municipalities have taken that step, and clearly there's a big financial aspect to that, and it's only one of a suite of tools that I understand, which the Ontario Good Roads Association wants to put before rural municipalities to help address the issues of road safety. So I certainly agree with Mr. Robb in terms of needing to have additional information, and certainly bringing the police to the table they would have information regarding accidents and other enforcement issues. I think that would be a good baseline to start with. But that's only the sort of the tip of the iceberg, as I understand from my reading of the document. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, CEO Snell. You look like you're leaning forward.
And certainly, as council's aware, some of this data was collected through our master transportation plan that was just recently submitted to council and adopted. So we will bring forward initiatives within the next short period to implement some of the recommendations of the master transportation plan that do deal directly with road safety. We do monitor speed and our um, um, collision data on any intersection or any stretch of road that we feel is an issue. And certainly, of course, council's most recently aware of the motion put forward by this council to county council to look at a certain intersection that has caused us historical issues in our municipality. So I think we're working on many of these issues, but certainly if good roads can support and it's cost effective, it's something we could partner with.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments before we think about a resolution here? All right, Councillor Andreessen, do you propose the resolution? You wish to have this letter or this resolution that they've proposed endorsed?
Yes, there's a resolution that was a sample resolution that was provided in the documentation. To simplify things, I was wondering if we use that kind of wording to support that, unless there's another suggestion.
Okay. So let's turn to the clerk for a minute. I think the approach is, absent your other suggestions, that we use the resolution that is within the correspondence from Good Roads as the basis of a resolution for our consideration. Is that okay?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, I think using that resolution in the letter would be the simplest way for council to move forward.
Okay. Do we want to advise in this or augment this with anything pertaining to the province actually spending some of the money on this? I assume that it's sort of implied, but do we want to get more explicit? Encourages the province to pay for this? Someone, yes. I see Councillor Andreessen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great if the province would cover these costs. It would certainly alleviate the burden to us as a municipality.
Right. Can we, Clerk Klein, can you kind of work something in there that encourages, there's an extra statement perhaps after the first, therefore be it resolved, that we call on the province of Ontario to invest in this project. Is that okay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you can add that clause
All right.
in. Yep.
Moved by.
I'll make the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstey. Thank you. Any discussion or debate here? All right, we're going to assume that we're not going to see the whole text of the resolution yet, but that it will be there when it comes to the minutes. All right, are you ready for a vote then? Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Anyone else with anything to extract before we consider the omnibus resolution to move forward with the consent agenda? Okay, not seeing anything. So resolution as follows, that consent items 7.1 to 7.20 be received for information and the minutes of the October 21st, 2024 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to item 8 on our agenda. First, we're going to consider a delegation from the one with interest in our council's business or authority. It is usual practice to remind the delegation that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted. And that includes presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. We'll be a little bit lenient because we detect the importance of the subject, I think, tonight. And certainly decorum is required. Further to my usual request that we maintain an atmosphere of respect and courtesy, I remind delegates do not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. Tonight, we have Mark Nokis of the County of Huron Immigration Partnership, who wishes to provide an overview of a report recently released by said organization, and the report pertains to a survey that was completed and analyzed. Mr. Nokis, please approach the podium, and the floor is yours. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor, Council staff, and members of the public. Tonight's presentation is to provide you a little bit more insight about part of your population, immigrants. It is not specific to North Perth. It is for the broader Huron and Perth region. So just to give you a bit of background, who are the immigrants? And this is data from the 2021 census. In Huron County, there's 4,200 immigrants, along with plus 1,355 temporary work permits that were issued in 2022 and 2023, and 135 international post-secondary students. In Perth County, there's 7,310 immigrants as of 2021. 720 temporary work permits that were issued in the last 2 years, and 250 international post-secondary students. In North Perth, the data from the census tells us that there's 1,665 immigrants, which would be 11% of your total population. 225 were new immigrants, meaning they moved to North Perth and to Canada from 2016 to 2021, and 210 were non-permanent residents, so on shorter stays. We don't get data that drills down to municipalities around temporary work permits or international students, so I can't tell you precisely how many permits are and permit holders are here in North Perth. Just to give you a bit of background about what the Immigration Partnership is, our goal is to improve newcomer settlement experiences in a coordinated fashion. So we work with many partners to build strategies to create welcoming and inclusive communities. And because so many of our services cross borders in Huron and Perth, we often find that we work with the school board, with the United Way, with the health unit, and we're servicing immigrants across both regions. Immigration partnerships are funded by Citizen. I always struggle with this one. Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which is the federal government. There's 89 immigration partnerships across Canada. Within Huron County, we are situated within the Economic Development Department, and we have been there since 2010. We've got 4 strategic areas, and so those are to strengthen collaboration amongst 25 organizations that are working to support newcomers in Huron County and Perth, to strengthen capacity of the newcomer serving ecosystem, to build welcoming communities and foster connections and deliver information, and to conduct research. And so tonight's presentation is about the research, and the remainder will be about research that was conducted a year ago exactly of immigrants in the area. So we conducted a survey that was similar to Waterloo Region, and Waterloo Region survey has been going on for many years, and it was like a blueprint that we could work on and better understand the questions that were asked and get a better understanding of the population. We partnered with the University of Guelph to make sure that the research was ethically sound and done to the highest standards. And then we pulled together a working group, and you can see some of the partners there who fashioned the survey so it would meet questions that people in the community had here. We went through an ethics review process. We recruited through multiple partners and ended up with 195 participants. And so you can see 105 of those people were from Huron County, 90 were from Perth, 65% had been in Canada for less than 5 years, and they were born in 49 different countries and now call Huron or Perth home. The top countries that filled out the survey that people were originally from were from Ukraine, from the Philippines, and from India. We had a pretty even split of males and females. 81% of the participants could speak more than one language fluently. 71% completed college, university, or an advanced degree. And I believe that says 93% felt they could speak, understand, read, and write English well, very well, or fairly well. Most people were working either full time or part time, followed by those who were employed, self employed. There was 8% of the population, who were unemployed, 6% were students, homemakers, retired, and other. You'll note that the unemployed number is higher than the average for across the region. That's consistent with data across Canada. When newcomers move to a country, they're more likely to be unemployed than the residents who have been here long term. We also ask people, is the job that you're doing right now at the same level as your international experience and education? And 1 out of 3 told us, yeah, it was, but 2 out of 3 said no, it wasn't. However, about half said that at least some of their international experience and education was recognized in Canada. We asked people whether or not they were volunteering in the community, and about 1/3 of the population were volunteering who filled out this survey. And the most frequent place that they volunteered was with another immigrant or newcomer organization or a religious organization. People told us 2 out of 3 said, yes, this is a very welcoming community. Yes, I would recommend it for other immigrants to move to this area. And yes, I feel like I belong in this community. 2 out of 3 told us that. And then we asked people, what's your experience like with various government services? And we had a list of 15 government services that they could tell us about their experiences. The highest rated were libraries, were the top, followed by they had great interactions and good experiences with police, children's education, recreation services, and social services. Oops, let's go back. They also identified challenges that they were facing, and we asked them, what's the biggest challenges you or your family have experienced in the last year and here in Perth? And this one, 47% said the cost of living or money problems. 34% said finding a family doctor, 29% said finding affordable housing, 28% said access to transportation, 25% said finding work that matches their professional qualifications. Oh, I'm too trigger happy. Finding a place to live was another challenge, regardless of whether or not it was affordable. Finding food, that was their cultural preference. 17% said that was a challenge. 17% said making friends, finding other healthcare professionals, and learning English. So those were the top challenges identified. We did foresee some of those challenges would be forthcoming, so we asked questions within the survey, and they included, is your household income enough to meet the needs of your household? And not enough is the biggest margin, and that falls in line if we go back to 2, about 47% had cost of living or money problems. Is your housing affordable? Meaning that 30% threshold, whether you had more than 30% of your income was going to housing. 27 and 31, who's good at quick math here? 58%. 58 respondents told us they did not feel like their housing was affordable. We also identified that isolation might be a challenge. And so, how often did you feel isolated or alone in the last 12 months? Not at all, or a little bit, was the vast amount of people said that they didn't feel that. But there was quite a number who said somewhat, quite a bit, or a great deal. We asked people, how can we improve our communities for other newcomers? And 34% said, help us find work. Or help us start a business, improve the availability of public transportation. Is there more affordable housing available? Is there actions to increase the welcoming and acceptance of immigrants in this community, and educate employers on hiring, retaining, and promoting immigrants. Other suggestions included a central place for employers to find immigrant workers and for workers to find employment, actions to improve social connections, availability of worship space for your religion, actions to reduce discrimination, and more opportunities to improve English language skills. And we asked people the way they wanted to get information as well. And the top one was Facebook, followed by email, through family or friends, local media, or an organizational website. So that led us to a number of new steps. So next steps, we developed and disseminated new information projects because we knew that immigrants weren't finding a lot of the information that was available about local services. So we developed new information guides. We coordinated an action plan to strengthen entrepreneur support so that people would better be able to better understand that with our small business center. We brought in an immigrant-focused employment officer, and they're from College Boreal and speak 3 different languages. We built awareness of immigrant healthcare needs at various webinars. We organized social events for newcomers, and we developed opportunities to access and learn English. Now, most of those are focused on Huron County because although we have services for both regions, we are funded specifically to work in Huron County. We are also, this November, a year later, conducting more research to better understand newcomer experiences of housing in Huron Perth. Next week, we'll be having a focus group at the North Perth Library with newcomers to better explore what's it like to live in your house? How did you find your house? Is there challenges that you faced in finding your house? What's the condition of your house? And so on. So I will end there and welcome your feedback.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hocus. Let's turn to colleagues. I think we have time for a question or two at this point. Councillor Andreessen, you'd like to go first?
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you for your presentation, Mark. Just your last comment, something about you service more Huron County. So who services the Perth County residents?
Perth does not have a local immigration partnership at this time.
And how, if I could have secondary to that, what do we do to support our Perth County residents? How can we advocate for supporting our immigrants here?
Yeah, I think I am not well versed in what's going on locally in terms of how you're supporting immigrants because I focus more on Huron, but there is work being done. There is an application, I believe, to form a local immigration partnership in Perth County that's sitting before the government and for consideration right now. I don't know whether or not it will be funded, but certainly we understand that there's a need.
Thank you.
Thanks. I can advise, and my memory might be a little sketchy on the timeline, but about 5 years ago, Perth County had applied for funds from the federal government to initiate a local immigration partnership, and that was denied by the federal government. So we have, to some degree, been fortunate that Huron is providing services of that nature to us to this point. I suspect that there's a newish application in. It sounds like there might be. But CAO Snell, did you want to add anything to this?
So I think your recollections, as I recall it, we're pretty close. And there is a new application before the federal government right now, but we have not heard back as it's been put forward by the county. We were disappointed last time it was denied, but we, both with the county and our local staff, have tried to work with partners like the County of Huron to piece together as much of the immigration services we can. In the meantime, we are very hopeful that the new application will bring us full immigration services to Perth County.
Thank you for that, Chris. It's just I find that very disappointing given our numbers are actually higher than those in Huron County, and even if there was a partnership between Perth and Huron to provide these services like we do in many other programs. It would be better to have a service as well. So I'm hopeful that we get that approval at the federal level. Thank you.
Anyone else? One more question, Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thanks very much, Mark, for your presentation. I do know the Multicultural Association started here in Perth County, I'm going to say about 8 years ago. And I know that they're a grassroots movement that I think is aligned with some of the work that is being done. But I certainly agree with Councillor Andreessen as well as CAO Snell. When you look at our numbers here within the whole of geographic Perth County, they're substantial. And hopefully we will be able to see the funds. When you look at North Perth specifically on your second slide, 11% of our total population is immigrants. So if we're not able to fund that through the federal government or however we do it, we're really doing a disservice for those. And I know that we've talked with local employers and so on that are looking to for immigrants to help with our workforce. Workforce attraction and retention is a huge issue, and I see that some of the documentation that you have here would support that effort. So anything that we can do as a council to help and support that, I think that would be worthy of our consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. And I think we've got a new little goal here, perhaps, to get ourselves one of these up and running for Perth County. I want to take the opportunity actually to sort of send kudos to our manager of strategic initiatives who works quite diligently on a range of programming that to some degree addresses some of the gaps that you were identifying. And she and her team are doing pretty remarkable work. So, again, we're trying to make do with what's available to us, and the corporation is certainly committed to driving forward supports for new Canadians. So thank you for coming tonight. All right. Our agenda indicates that we will hold a public meeting pertaining to land planning matters. For the purpose of executing this public meeting, I use my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of the public meeting. We are in recess. All right, now we are going to turn to the public meeting. Councillor Johnston, let the minutes note is exiting the chambers. So let's begin. This is a public meeting dealing with an application made under the Planning Act. I welcome all those who have come to this meeting tonight for the purposes of this public meeting. And this is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for draft plan of subdivision, NP 24-01, and zoning bylaw amendment number 06-2024, Trident Group Limited for property legally described as part lot 7 and 27, and 28, concession 1, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be received and considered by council tonight. Those in attendance wishing to make comment and who are remote concerning this application will be given an opportunity as well to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in these matters must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email, telephone, or by utilizing the public meeting sign-in sheet, which is on the desk at the back of the room, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I'm going to call for a summary of the application for our consideration. This will be offered by Nathan Garland, who is a planner for the County of Perth, who works on North Perth files. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Garland. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of North Perth Council. So I'm here to present the application NP 24-2001, that is the plan of subdivision, as well as the accompanying zoning bylaw amendment, which is Z6-2024. As mentioned in reference, the applicants and the agent, Carolyn Baker from Baker Planning, and then the applicant Trident Group on behalf of Connie and Angela Bray. Then just there's no one in subject property to the west of Liverpool there on Perth Line 86. So just an outline of the subject lands and the draft plan of subdivision for council's consideration. So I have outlined and provided the draft plan which has been submitted as part of the application. It's including the blocks 1 through approximately 107 for the townhouse dwellings or single family dwellings. There's a number of medium residence as well as high residential blocks included throughout there. For council's consideration, also there is a number of right of ways through that plan of subdivision as well too to provide for access, park space, and walking trails in a north-south delineation, again to move people from the south to the north or vice versa towards some of the park space. So there is a parkland located at the very southern end of the plan of subdivision adjacent to the Maitland River there. And then also for council's consideration, there is that natural environment block, which is also included in there. That's proposed to remain as the natural environment retreat area. And then subsequently a commercial block as well too, just at the north end and directly adjacent to Perth Line 86. Oh, sorry for the back one. There's the accompanying zoning bylaw amendment. So there is a number of different zoning bylaws requested. There are site-specific zones, so that's tried to outline them. I won't go through them all, but there are a number of changes to the R3 zoning, which is kind of that medium residential to a lower density, and then a number of special requests for the higher density blocks, the R5 considerations, and then also the highway commercial zone, the C3, just to recognize that as well too. In support of the application, there has been a number of studies and additional information that has been provided for council's consideration and staff. So part of it was a planning justification report that was completed. There was an environmental impact study that looked at both the on-site features and adjacent features, including the watercourse, the Maitland River, and the National Environment Block. Archaeological assessment was completed as part of the previous official plan amendment, as well as a functional servicing and stormwater report, geotechnical report, hydrogeological report, and a traffic study also, which was completed. Just kind of a brief high-level overview of some of the zoning provisions that have been requested to be addressed. So the R3, they are requesting some reduction in lot sizes, will be the frontage, interior and exterior side yards, as well as some provisions for double decks and lot coverage and rear yard encroachment. We're seeing this a little bit more so now with some of these higher density potential developments happening, so they are just tightening up these blocks and making them a little bit more compact and built them that way, as well as the R5 similar provisions, as well as some allowances for some affordable housing and some maximum density provisions. The stormwater management block is the institutional zone which is being considered. Parks and trails and the parks and recreation block, the national environment block would be the river corridor and woodlot area, and then the highway commercial zone. For council's consideration, there are 25 conditions listed as part of that. I won't go through them all for reference, but there are 25 conditions listed. A lot of them deal with the subdivision agreement and requirements as such. They outline the requirements that the applicant would be required to follow. It's basically their checklist. Similar to the conditions of draft plan or conditions of consent, these are their checklists that they are required to go through to meet these conditions. Some of it is the subdivision agreement, which looks at phasing, as well as a drain abandonment requirement. There is a municipal drain that runs through a portion of that property, so that does include that drainage act and the drain abandonment. MVCA has provided a request for conditions, as well as Canada Post and utilities such as Enbridge. There is a parkland dedication requirements. They would look at that as well too. Just for council's consideration, note there is a fencing and lot demarcation requirements, just to make sure there is adjacent buffers and certain fencing placed in there. And then also, just a note for council, there is a requirement to have available servicing just confirmed through the subdivision agreement. This is just a standard condition. There's not a servicing concern. I think this has come up to some other councils, but there's not a servicing concern for this. This is a fairly standard condition that we're including in all subdivisions. And then for council's just overview, this is a look at it from Perth Line 86 looking south, and then also just from Kincaid Street looking north towards the lands. And then the picture to the north, or the picture at the top of the screen, is just looking south towards the Maitland River. That's from the end of Twomley. And then just looking from Kincaid Street across the future subdivision property towards that woodlot block that would remain woodlot and part of the future trails or walkways and aesthetic features. For council's information, BMRS did provide comments. They are requesting a final stormwater management report, which is fairly typical as well too. And then the subdivision agreement. Enbridge has requested easements for all of their services to be installed. MVC has requested conditions as well too, just a permit, file EIS memo, and sediment erosion control for the site, just to make sure all the sediment when they're doing pre-construction stays on the property and doesn't transverse elsewhere. Blue Water Recycling has been notified. They would provide additional comments to the detailed design section. And then Perth County has also provided some requests for comments. This is a road widening consideration along Perth Line 86, potentially for future pedestrian access along that stretch. Several neighbors have provided concerns with respect to the plan of subdivision. This is for block 24. Primarily, the concerns have been expressed. This is previously block 17, so just those two, I'll say, blocks are used interchangeably. Apologies, but just for council's consideration reference. The comments have provided, I've tried to summarize them. There's no desire for development or apartments in the rear yard, and it should be limited to a two-story. Loss of enjoyment of the privacy of the rear yard. And then there's also a road that abuts some residential lot to the south. And then posting on the subdivision side. So those are some of the concerns we've heard and tried to summarize for the council. We have included those in the council package as well too. Just as we go through them, so this is an outline. I'll say it's a very conceptual plan. This has not been finalized. This is not part of the draft plan. It's just identified as a block. So this would be required to go through site plan approval at a future date. So this is for block 17, which is now block 124. This is a conceptual plan. So I'll say the existing residences are to the west, or to the east, apologies, and this would be to the west. So you'll see a bit of a drive aisle there with parking facing towards the west, and then a future apartment that would be considered stacked townhouses with what they're considering at this time. I've included some comments through there. Just in relation to a comparison of the North Perth zoning bylaw. So currently there is no density maximum. They are proposing a 70 unit maximum per hectare, which brings the unit count to about 21, 22 units on that lot. There is a request for an increase of height, so it's going from 10.5 meters to 12 meters. A parking reduction for affordable units, and then, as noted, there would be a site plan agreement required in a future date to address things like lighting, snow clearing, access, and garbage removal and disposal. So managing it through that, as well as potentially buffering from some of the adjacent residents. This is also one that we wanted to highlight as part of the concerns or comments expressed was around the Street J. So they are proposing Street J to loop around to Street D and I. This is towards the southern part of the draft plan of subdivision. I'm happy to go back to the larger plan in the future if there's consideration for this. We do know we have had some discussions with the developer and the consultants. So they are proposing I'll say a small walkway. There is actually going to be a full walkway occur through there to make it connected, but they are proposing just to disconnect those from the rear yards. There would be no rear yard access, as well as we look at moving Street J over as much as we can towards block 137 and providing some additional buffering through there, such as bouldering and or landscaping, fences, etc. With respect to the signs, so there is a sign placed on Perth Line A6. That's the only publicly accessible area at this point in time. So the blocks from Twomley and Kincaid have not been extended and have not been opened up, so those remain as blocks. So there was no requirement out through the Planning Act to post any signage there. So just along Perth Line 86. However, the notice of public application was mailed out on July 18th, with a notice of public meeting mailed out on October 14th as per the Planning Act requirements. So those were just sent out via mail. Affordable and attainable housing. So this is an excerpt from the applicant's planning justification report, so I'm including this. Inclusion of a 10% single bedroom within certain blocks, specifically within block 124, which is formerly block 17, and then block 134, which is formerly block 27. So if you're looking at two different plans, it's just the carryover, as well as it would be noted that there is an opportunity for them to apply for the North Perth CIP, and some of these provisions are could be addressed through a site plan agreement for the subject blocks, just to make sure they're carried through. Policy considerations. So this was previously supported through a County of Perth official plan amendment as well as a local official plan amendment. Now we're at the current stage of the zoning bylaw application as well as the subdivision application. For council's consideration, we're asking you to consider the zoning bylaw today in direction to the county with respect to the plan of subdivision. This would be required to come back to North Perth Council again for final adoption. So if there's any comments, just some notes and things like that, we can bring those back and address them at North Perth Council at a future date. So in the staff recommendation that we received the report, it is our request that North Perth Council approves in principle and gives first and second reading to the bylaw, and that North Perth Council directs the County of Perth Council to approve the plan of subdivision NP04. I believe that is. My apologies for the typo. Well, I think it is. Sorry. How many years are there any questions at the end of my presentation?
Thank you. We'll be mindful of our process. Let me just check again with regards to some of the notifications and correspondence received. Just to confirm, nothing beyond what you've shared, Mr. Garland. In terms of providing information about this notice of public meeting, I believe you shared that with us. Is there anything from the clerk's department? Okay, thank you. And likewise, with regards to correspondence, comments, and reports received about this application, I'm going to assume that what you shared with us is complete and full and accurate. Clerk Klein, do we have anything additional that needs to be drawn to our attention on this matter?
Through Mr. Mayor, nothing additional. I just want to note that we just received one piece of correspondence, which was from Alan and Rose Clements, and that was included in the agenda package.
Right, thank you. We did see that in the package. That's good. All right, so we've covered off those components. This is the opportunity for the public part of the meeting. Anyone wishing to make comments is now invited to do so. We do this in a structured way. First, we invite those who are in favor, other than the applicant, to make their comments in this public meeting. So anyone in attendance tonight or that we're aware of remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the application beyond the applicant? I'm not seeing any hands wave at me. If you're interested in speaking in favor, you're welcome to do so. Okay, we'll move forward then. There is the opportunity as well to speak in opposition to this application. And again, both here and virtually, if we have anyone online who's registered for that purpose. If you'd like to come forward to the microphone, we ask you to identify yourself and your address, I believe, to help us understand the context of your comments. Please step forward. Oh, you need to press the button on the microphone panel. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, Mayor Kassenberg and councillors. My name is Ann Alden. I live at 29 Winchester Crescent. This proposed subdivision is directly behind my home. I'd like to express my opposition to the proposed bylaw amendments on a couple of different areas in question. Block 17, or Block 124 now, is what brings me here tonight. To give a quick background, the houses directly behind Block 124 have an easement at the rear of our properties. New purchasers found out the day of their house closings, to their surprise, that there was an easement in their backyards. This easement stops us from erecting a fence, planting trees, building any permanent structures in the back 4 meters of our property. So no real way for privacy in the event of development behind us. And here we are tonight. So the residents that paid premiums for our lots on the outskirts of the development are now forced to come to council meetings to ask that consideration be given to the residents of Westwood. Having paid extra for premium lots, then finding out the back 14 feet of our properties were unusable to build a fence, put a shed, or trees for privacy, the last things we thought would abut our backyards would be roadways, parking lots, and surely not an apartment building. I'm confident council will agree that having an apartment building behind our homes is not something someone would think acceptable. It's one thing for someone to purchase a home that is beside an existing apartment building, but to anyone to think it would be okay to put an apartment building behind homes that purchasers would charge premiums for is unimaginable and makes no sense. Having an apartment in Block 17 or 124 would be a game changer for the residents here tonight. The value of our homes would plummet, would even be difficult to sell, highly discounted. My guess is buying beside commercial property or an apartment building would have saved a couple $100,000 to us folks, but we choose not to purchase beside an apartment building and to move and have substantial losses to our homes leaves us in a precarious situation, with some of us having left the workforce to retire. Relocating to with a substantial monetary loss to our housing funds was not in anyone's plans, and we should not be forced upon us. So we're here tonight to protect our largest assets. This is something that keeps me up at night, thinking, how did we end up here? The thought of having an apartment building with 17 family dwellings, or now Nathan is suggesting could be more, looking down into our backyards is sickening to us all. As this unit will be a 20 or 30 feet higher than all of our bungalows, not only will we lose any privacy we enjoy in our backyards, but we also lose any sunshine in our backyards. Our rear yards are relatively small. They're shady in the morning and would be shaded in the afternoon by a new apartment building. We enjoy sitting in our backyard in the sun, and once that is gone, so is our enjoyment. Everyone has a right to peaceful enjoyment of their property, but having an apartment in your backyard would destroy that enjoyment for me, my husband, and our neighbors. I can easily look at this plan and see many ways to keep the apartments together, single-family homes together, and townhomes together in this proposed development that would follow Listowel's official plan of ensuring developments transition together, having like homes backing onto like homes. I would also have concerns about what the water runoff from an apartment unit and parking lot would have on my already flooding backyard in the spring. I am at the end of the development's easement and don't need any more water. I'm also wondering why all the single detached homes are on the opposite side of the subdivision. Flipping the subdivision would be far better adhere to Listowel's official plan. I had raised concerns to the developer and Baker Planning Group about Block 17 before the official draft was submitted. Not only did Block 17 not change or was moved to another location with other apartments, but the changes that were made only added additional concerns for the existing residents on Winchester Crescent and Winchester Street. Block 17 will have people in and out of their cars all day and night right in our backyards. Additionally, we would have a road in front of our homes and a parking lot behind. These would not be the neighbors we thought we may have someday, but random families and their guests. Then those families will end up parking on our street, as parking on Kincaid will be minimal, as Kincaid is only a 2-lane road. So with only 15.5 parking spots for 17 families, we know the parking will not be sufficient. My second issue is with the park space. In very tiny letters, you can see 2 blocks to be zoned PR. I object to the PR locations and size. I see there is a protected turtle area in the larger of the 2 spaces. Turtles won't be protected for long if that's supposed to be a park area for children. The second space looks like a small, skinny area behind a few single-family homes and between a wooded area. Nowhere I would ever send my children to play. I think much more thought needs to be given to where parkland should be located, keeping in mind where the majority of children will live. I'm not sure what percentage of space is to be designated for parkland, but putting the parkland in the middle of the neighborhood would be beneficial to all new residents and would not have children playing in a small area between a forest and behind some homes or beside a watershed area with protected turtles. Park space should be where high density is. The plan is no parkland anywhere near the high density homes or apartments, but all the parkland is where single family homes are. It looks like they're allocating parkland where they cannot build homes instead of what makes sense as usable park space. Block 17 would be a perfect space for parkland and would certainly appease those who paid premiums and ended up with easements instead. This is also a space large enough for kids that live in all of the townhomes and apartments near 86 to actually play. My third issue is with the road running directly behind the large portion of residences on Winchester Street. I can envision cars driving down the streets with their headlights shining into rear family rooms of the Winchester Street homes. Then cars turning at the end. Homes will have flashing lights in their homes all night long. With the road in front of the homes and a road out back, I see no consideration for existing residents. I've not spoken with a neighbor yet that was shocked the development was going in behind us, but the design gives no consideration to our residents who have bought here secure and thinking that their properties and property values would not be in jeopardy because of a new development going in behind us. People would not purchase new developments if they thought that a developer would have such influence on their most precious investments. We ask that you only consider a new development that will blend with our existing neighborhood. Several neighbors thought perhaps a walking path between developments would benefit children and adults alike. I'm unaware of the walkway that Nathan was talking about tonight. I don't see it on the plan, but certainly a walking path would be good to have now because I walk every day and I have to cross 23 to find trails. If walking paths are not implemented now, then when? I ask the council take the time to look at many ways this development can keep all concerned happy and try to do what's best for residents, their families, and the existing and future community. So we're here to ask council to not rezone Block 17 or 124 as R5 multi-unit, and that council will ask the developer to move this multi-unit near the apartments close to 86 or Twomley with the other apartments. I also do not agree with the PR zoning for this development. I think more consideration needs to be made to meet with developers' density plans for parkland to be planned accordingly. And the street backing onto Winchester Street, it doesn't give any consideration to existing homeowners. I do have a related question to this development, if I could ask that as well to council. But is council satisfied with the information about the water sewage from Kincaid into said development being not adequate in size? And does the developer or taxpayers pay for this upgrade?
Okay, thank you. We'll see if we can't get an answer before we exit here. CEO Snell, do you have any insight into this one?
Any infrastructure upgrades necessary to service this piece of land will be paid for by the developer if necessary.
My understanding is that Kincaid is the water sewage is not large enough. That was mentioned at a meeting initially in Stratford.
So, depending on the density of this development, that is discussions we are still having with the developer, and it may that Kincaid infrastructure may require an upgrade, but that will be paid for by the developer.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Okay.
Regarding my concerns?
I think we've taken note of them. It's not all that usual that we ask those who've come before us to answer questions. We don't want
I
to
was
grill
asked
you.
a lot of questions in Stratford about our development as well, so I just thought that maybe somebody might have.
Just maybe we'll afford you certainly that opportunity then, colleagues. Do any of you have questions for Ms. Alden?
Okay. Let's
Councillor
keep in mind
Rothwell?
we can't do anything in our backyards. The last 4 meters we can't put a tree up. We have no way to block. I wish there was a picture that Nathan had shown about our backyards so you could see exactly our situation. That we're pretty wide open to having a parking lot literally in our backyards.
Councillor Rothwell, did you have a question?
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and just through you, thanks for your presentation. I'm just wondering is there any more detail you can give us about the easement, that 4-meter easement, specifically what it's for? Is it for drainage? Is it
for drainage? There's a lot of easements that went through our neighborhood. Multiple residents have easements that they were unaware of until, again, day of closing. One neighbor I did know that was told about the easement because they were moving her home 5 feet to one side of her property, so she had to know about that. But it's 4 meters right from the back of her property.
and just further, and that easement for drainage, is it surfaced, like on the surface drainage?
Yes.
Or so there's no pipes or anything underneath, and it's a
No,
grade
it's not
difference?
in my backyard, but when it leaves my backyard, it goes into the sugar bush. It runs along the sugar bush into a large drain.
Yeah.
And that is also wetland, and the back corner of my property is considered wetland as well, into the sugar bush.
And just clarification then, so that's, is there a grade difference currently between the rear of your lot, where this 4 meters is, and the subject property where the subdivision is?
Not for some of my neighbors. I have a large septic system directly behind my home from the church. The Listowel Baptist Church has a large septic directly behind my home.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the application? They say you should wait 6 seconds when you've asked a question like that, so I'm waiting to see if anyone else wishes to step forward. Do we have anyone connected remotely, Clerk Klein, for this purpose? Okay. All right, so then as per our process, then next there's the opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to present to this public meeting. I see that Ms. Baker is with us, so you're welcome to take the podium, Ms. Baker.
Apologies, I'm a little bit shorter there. Just pull it down. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of North Perth Council. My name is Caroline Baker. I'm a land use planner with Baker Planning Group, and I'm here this evening representing both the owner and the applicant, being Trident Group. Certainly, I've been for you with respect to these applications in the past, with the urban boundary expansion through the official plan amendment, and most recently related to the consent. I'm going to try and skip ahead a little bit because I know you've heard from the county planner as well as some of the residents. So certainly I had an overview site, which you've seen already this evening, a familiarity of location. I wanted to spend the presentation providing details about the design of the subdivision, the proposed land uses, the rationale that went into the specific design and considerations in terms of surrounding property owners and the community, as well as some further details on the technical work that was done, and certainly any questions the council or the public has. Certainly, as noted, there is a range and mix of dwelling units proposed on the site, including single detached dwellings, straight townhouses, and multiple unit housing. And I just wanted to clarify that multiple unit housing could be, for example, a stacked townhouse, or it could be a low rise apartment. So that sort of encapsulates both of those type of dwelling units that you see built in your community. Certainly, as anticipated within any subdivision, you can see roads are just under 5 hectares on the land area required, stormwater management ponds, parks, and walkways. Overall, as you saw on that slide, there is a density of 34 units per hectare when we look at just the development land itself. But when we consider the entire subdivision with the roads and stormwater, it's just over 25 units per hectare. This is in keeping with a number of subdivisions and recent developments in not only North Perth, but Perth County in terms of mix of use and density. Up in front of you is the draft plan of subdivision. For ease of viewing, we have added some color coding because I know it is a large size plan. What you'll see is there are 3 new road entrances, line 86, Twomley, and Kincaid. The Twomley and Kincaid entrances were selected and located with the previous plan of subdivision and development, so those road stubs were provided to provide the connections through the west. And there will be a connection to the north, and just for information, we'll call the plan right is north and plan left is south. It just fits much better to have a larger size when we orient it this way. You will see there are 2 large natural environment areas that are being protected per the environmental impact study. There are 3 multi-unit blocks, one on line 86, one at block 17, as well on the south end, which would be adjacent to the stormwater management pond and the natural area. So I did want to spend a little bit of time on the multi-unit development blocks. Certainly we are in receipt of public comments as well as the comments this evening. I would note for Mr. Garland's presentation that these are conceptual for the purposes of rezoning to demonstrate what could be built. Certainly, if the applications are approved, the applicant would have to come forward with specific site plan applications for each block. That would include things such as landscape plan, lighting plan, stormwater management, planning, and building elevations. The concept on the left side of the screen is block 17, block 124, apologize for the confusion. This is the block that is proposing a 3-story apartment building that would have up to 17 dwelling units. The intent, as you'll see later on in the presentation, is certainly to include affordable units within this building, again contributing to the range and mix of uses. The design of this conceptual site plan was certainly intentional given previous comments received. At the time of the official plan amendment application, in fact, the building and the parking were flipped. So the building was closer to the existing residence and parking was provided further away. In consultation with the applicant and concerns raised about privacy and overlook, the building was shifted to the west with the parking lot intervening, such that there is between about 14 and 15 meters between the back of the adjacent residential property lines and the proposed apartment building. This figure, in my view, as a land use planner, is important. When we look at land use compatibility, matters of privacy and overlook, a well utilized urban design principle is what we refer to as an angular plane. And this is essentially looking at the height of the proposed building in relation to the horizontal separation. So if we come horizontally 14 or 15 meters, how high does the building go up? And when we get an equal ratio, it does minimize the line of sight that somebody in the apartment building can look over and down. It's used in a number of applications across Ontario in terms of land use compatibility. The design was also intentional to ensure that should the adjacent place of worship ever seek to redevelop some of their lands, that they would be able to obtain vehicular access in order to do that, which was also a comment that was discussed at the time of the official plan amendment. Certainly, there is a landscape buffer proposed that we anticipate will certainly include a solid wood fence as well as landscaping to provide that buffering to the adjacent property owners. I did also just want to quickly note on the height. The zoning bylaw is requesting a maximum height of 12 meters, which is in the cap in the North Perth zoning bylaw for R5. I would note that surrounding residential properties are afforded a right of 10.5 meters in terms of height. So even in your R1 low density zone, the maximum height is 10.5. When we move into the R5, I do recognize it's called high density, but it does cap the height at 12 meters. So there isn't a substantial difference in terms of height that could be built between an R1 all the way through to an R5. And certainly I'd be happy to answer any other questions with respect to this block or questions from the community. On the right, you'll see the proposed development multi-unit that fronts onto line 86. This time that's proposed to be a stacked townhouse product, which I believe North Perth has familiarity with based on recent projects. So that's the ability where you can stack 4 units high, and then typically they go 5 or 6 across, allowing 20 to 24 units within a building block. Again, this style of development does lend itself to including affordable and certainly attainable units. There was a comment about park space, and certainly I'll continue to touch on that through the presentation. Where there's a multi-unit block, there will be, of course, a private amenity area. This is included in the zoning bylaw and is anticipated for any multi-unit development that's going through site plan, is they also require to have an outdoor amenity space for those residents to have outdoor, whether it's a barbecue or a picnic table or a small play structure within those developments. And certainly that's been contemplated on all 3 multi-unit blocks. This is the larger multi-unit block that is located on the south end of the development next to the natural area. Range of potential options, including this is a back-to-back stacked product, or could alternatively be an apartment building in keeping with the density and height that was approved immediately to the east. So certainly you're likely familiar with the existing apartment buildings, and this proposed block is in keeping again with that scale and height and continuation to the west. Units certainly oriented to benefit from the natural area and the creek to the south. As mentioned in the question earlier, there has been a detailed engineering design completed, reviewed with the county, North Perth, and BM Ross, looking at the drainage, stormwater management, water servicing, and sanitary. With respect to transportation, the traffic impact study confirmed that all intersection movements are operating at acceptable levels of service. My apologies, the expected auto trips are actually lower than 455. The commercial block, with its range of permitted use, has actually dropped the auto trips, so a significant portion of that was actually the commercial block, not the residential. But even with this auto generation, it was determined that all intersections would operate appropriately. There will be a requirement for a new left turn lane on Perth Line 86 into Street A, which would be the residential development. And as you'll see in the coming slides, there has been consideration with both transportation engineers and civil engineers on how to incorporate both sidewalks and multi-use trails within this development. So this is a quick schematic that was prepared by Grit Engineering. What you'll see, the air photo is overlaid the proposed draft plan of subdivision. The dashed red line that you're seeing is the proposed looped multi-use trail that will connect through the subdivision and along the natural areas, so the one to the south, and then looping back through the woodlot on the west side. They will also connect to the existing municipal streets. And as detailed, the applicant is proposing a new multi-use trail on line 86 to ensure there are further connections through the community. Again, the intent is to ensure that it is fully integrated, but also to use and benefit from those surrounding natural features as opportunities for recreation for not only the new community, but also the existing community. There was questions with respect to the amount of park space. The applicant has worked with North Perth staff and County of Perth staff in terms of the amount of park space and its location. There is one facing the river on the southwest side. The park space going into the woodlots, there is one that's a little bit smaller, but it's meant to be a trail access. So it's an opportunity to connect from the municipal sidewalk into a trail that runs along the woodlot. Certainly, the applicant will be required to pay for 5% cash in lieu under the Planning Act because there'll be some land dedication, but it'll be topped up with cash in lieu to contribute to North Perth's overall fund for park space and park amenity. As mentioned, natural heritage has been addressed to the satisfaction of the county and the Conservation Authority with no negative impacts and appropriate buffers, along with draft plan conditions to ensure that there is signage for community members to know demarcating between a natural feature and where it might be more appropriate to walk in relation to a natural feature. With respect to housing affordability, certainly we talked about this at the official plan stage. The applicant has retained a housing specialist. They're working through the CMHC funding to provide affordable housing units. North Perth staff were kind enough to attend a meeting with myself and the applicant to review the CIP, the available funding programs, and to confirm the rental rates that were required under the CIP to be affordable. That continues to be the applicant's intent with the proposed affordable units to meet North Perth's definition in the CIP. And certainly, when the next round of grant applications, they intend to submit to North Perth under that program to include affordable housing. There was some discussion with respect to the site-specific zoning. There is relief request in certain zones. The proposed relief relates to lot area, generally setbacks, and lot coverage. The proposed figures were used through benchmarking from several surrounding municipalities and recently approved subdivisions in Perth County. So this included Perth County, Huron County, Middlesex, and Stratford, and a review of their zoning bylaws and more recent developments. A number of the site-specific provisions allow opportunities for items like secondary suites within single detached dwellings, where it provides opportunity for increased coverage to provide that additional square footage, for example, for an entrance to a lower level unit. This is occurring in a number of surrounding municipalities as well. You'll also note there is a request for reduced parking solely related to affordable units. The applicant is requesting a reduction to one parking space where there's an affordable unit. This was in part there's rationale in this in terms of not only the cost to provide the affordable unit to get to that price point, that one parking space certainly does assist, but it also aligns with the provincial direction on the maximum parking allowed for an accessory dwelling unit. So in the province now, the maximum that can be requested in terms of parking for an ADU is one. And so this aligns with that direction from the province, again, encouraging affordable housing. So in summary, through the planning justification report and our review of the County of Perth staff report, it's our opinion that the applications are appropriate and represent good land use planning consistent with, I guess, new PPS that is now in force and effect. We're providing a mixed-use neighborhood. Certainly, we understand comments about the location of the one multi-unit block. In my opinion, as a planner, we strive to provide for mixed-use neighborhoods that don't put all one specific use in one area. There's a preference to see a mixed and integrated community that meets all the needs in terms of housing. And in my opinion, there's appropriate level of service, long-term protection for natural features. And the applicant is in agreement with the draft plan conditions put forward by the county planning staff. Thank you for indulging me. That went, I think, a bit long, but certainly happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker. We'll turn to council, and this is council's opportunity certainly to ask questions of any of those who have stood before us tonight. I think that's the appropriate approach. So does anyone have questions at this point in time for any party involved in this? Councilor Blazek.
Thank you. And with your permission, Mayor Kiesenberg, I don't have a question so much as a comment. So I spoke about this the first time that this was brought to our council table, and I feel compelled to speak about it again. For anyone to charge what has been referred to as a premium for properties that back onto land that is privately owned by a party that is not the seller of those premium properties is, in my opinion, of questionable ethics and if not, if not criminal. That being said, the owner of the property that is adjacent to those so-called premium lands, premium sites, cannot, by the municipality or by the county, be penalized or prevented from profiting off of their own land based on the actions of someone who profited on a promise that they were in no position to make. It's incredibly unfortunate, and I'm bothered by it. I was bothered by it when it was first brought to our attention. I continue to be bothered by it, and I felt that that needed to be said. Further, with your permission, I Mayor Kissenberg says this at the beginning of every one of our council meetings. He says that members of this council lead rich, full lives. And we got this agenda package, as we get every agenda package, at the end of business day on Thursday. And 100 pages of this package was dedicated to this specific proposition. And I'm personally feeling as though that was insufficient time to make an informed decision on this proposal. So I'm going to suggest to my colleagues that we consider deferring making a decision on this until our next council meeting, which I believe is the 18th. Thank you. Uh, again, if my colleagues would be in agreement with that, I would appreciate if we could defer so that we could really fully engage with the information that we've been given and make an informed decision. And if we defer this decision, if Baker Planning Group could share the presentation from this evening with council for our reference while we are fully immersing ourselves in the decision that needs to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blazek. Let me just see if we have other questions or comments from council before we consider a potential response to this. Let me turn first to staff, if I might. Is there any reservation, any deadlines, anything that we're not going to be compliant with if we, as a council, decide to endorse Councillor Blazek's proposition?
Through the mayor, I don't think we are aiming for a county council meeting for the draft plan. So the process would be comes to North Perth for consideration. There will be an agenda package submitted to county council at some point in time to get it in front of there for consideration of the plan of subdivision. The timing side of things, we may actually be outside the timing window anyways right now, so maybe beyond that I have to double check, I'll admit. But if there was that question, I don't know if we change staff position, so I may not change staff position, bringing it back to council for consideration. So happy to address it, but happy to bring it back as well too. So
okay, thank you, Planner Garland. CAO Snell, you want to offer any comment on the proposition that Councillor Blazek has put forward with regards to deferral?
Really, it's certainly, as Planner Nathan mentioned, it's really this would go to a future county council meeting for approval. So that would be set by the county planner and county staff when that approval would happen. But it sounds like this necessarily isn't delaying that timing.
I would have to re-review the timing. It may shift it to the next county council meeting, but yeah, I can still come to your county council for consideration or comments. It's strictly the plan of subdivision overall layout and that direction. But it's always appreciated when we have direction from local and municipal councils on that maybe as well too. So that might shift things a little bit. So I have to double check, but I think our timing might shift it back to the
yes, please, if you hear me.
Okay, I think I understand. Ms. Baker, would you like to offer comment on this?
Sorry.
You can hear me. Thank you. Through the mayor, certainly happy to share the presentation. That's not a problem. Clerks has it, and certainly if I can help in any way to circulate it, let me know. Certainly, it would be obviously the applicant's preference to get some direction tonight. Of course, with the county council date scheduled, I believe it's December 4th. So if we miss that date, I'd have to speak with county staff, but I believe that would push it into the new year. So certainly the applicant wouldn't object to the deferral to give more time, but of course, as you can appreciate, probably a preference to continue to work through the process in terms of attending county council and of course coming back in the recommendation from staff. As I understand it, the zoning is coming back to North Perth for a decision at a later date. So there wasn't a final decision on the zoning irregardless this evening. It would be just direction on the draft plan.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
I saw, it's a little atypical at this point, but I saw Ms. Alden's hand wave at one point. Did you want to offer comment here? You need to come forward.
Just in regards to the height.
You need to come, you do need to come to the microphone. It's just about transparency and making sure that the public sees our proceedings, right?
My concern was just when she mentioned the height of the buildings, one being 12 meters. She said that the height differential between an apartment building and our homes. I just wanted to make reference that we do have all bungalows. Every home in our neighborhood, except for maybe 3, are bungalows. So our homes are not 20, 30 feet high, as opposed to putting a building. And it is very, very close. And I would offer to any of you councillors that would like to come out to my home at 29 Winchester Crescent to come out into our backyards and see what our position is. I would certainly offer that to anybody that is interested. Our councillor Dave Johnson is obviously recused himself from this, and he's who I would go to if I had. I did leave multiple messages for him to come and discuss with me, but he never got back to me, and now I understand why he's
Lindsay Klein, if you hear me, I would appreciate speaking. I saw your note, but it's gone from my screen now.
What is going on? We have a breakthrough of someone who's connected remotely. Clerk Klein, did you want to help us with this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. He's also just he's with the applicant. He's just requesting to speak.
Okay, so we can afford that. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
If I'm wary that this is going to become a sort of free for all, and I don't really want that to happen. But if you have another comment to make, you're welcome to at this point. I think Councillor Rothwell has a question, and I think we have someone on the screen. I guess it's your client or some connection to the project.
Through the mayor, that is the applicant, Don Dejean, the principal of Trident Group. I was just going to clarify for the resident. I didn't mean to say, certainly aware that there are bungalows. I more meant that in the zoning bylaw, even if the applicant had proposed an R1 on this site, it could have been 10.5 meters. We're certainly aware that they do have bungalows in terms of the design. So I just wanted to clarify that wasn't meant to say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeJong, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. I apologize for not being there in person and sorry for having my microphone come into the room earlier. Appreciate everyone's time and want to quickly address you and appreciate members of staff. We've worked through many items over the last number of months. And I guess with caution, I ask council to recognize that we've gone through quite a bit of time this year, and we're anxious to be with the servicing of the subdivision and moving forward with the parcel. And it's important for us to have this happen in a timely manner next year. We're working very hard to have our project move ahead, and the timing is we're anxious on. Please, council, if you could consider that. Again, it's gone a little longer this year than we had hoped, is the openness of that. But working with council now, we know we can do something good for the community in many areas of housing being available. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak for a moment.
All right, thank you. Councillor Roth.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. First, I want to underscore Councillor Blazek's points to our resident Anne that spoke to us. It's borders on criminal in terms of paying a premium for lot that backs onto agricultural land when the owner had no authority to do so. So that's truly unfortunate and an issue that you and your neighbors will have to take up with your realtor and the project developer of that subdivision. It's not the first time it's happened, and unfortunately may not be the last. Nevertheless, just a couple of issues I want to talk about. I did mention to Planner Garland the fact that the County Council adopted a new official plan, and the new official plan has the land areas in the neighborhood designation, including the area on the south side of Perth Line 86 where there's commercial development proposed. And under my read of the new policies as adopted are that's neighborhood commercial. Now, going back, the official plan amendment that was approved and what the zoning is asking for here is highway commercial. There's a clear difference between those two, and I want to have this council be informed in terms of which direction we are to go. And again, I underscore the fact that for whatever the reason, the planning staff that were working on the new official plan did not bring forward the recently adopted official plan amendment that allowed highway commercial uses on this block as opposed to neighborhood. This is a big issue from a planning standpoint as to whether or not we should have corridor commercial, which is the designation of the new county official plan on the north side of Perth Line 86, and neighborhood policies on the south side. So I am really concerned about that and where that places us. The second issue I want to talk about, or ask the question about to the applicant and perhaps our planner Garland, Nathan Garland as well, is that the blocks for both the woodlot, which is I believe block 139, as well as block 128, which is the described as the walkway and so on, that would be on the south and west side of the subdivision, as to whether they're being conveyed to the municipality of North Perth, and if they are they counting towards parkland dedication?
Mr. Garland, do you know?
Through the mayor, it is my understanding that the woodlot is not being included as part of the parkland dedication component, so that would be conveyed to the municipality, as I understand, through municipal powers. The woodlot, the trail component, may be considered as part of the parkland because we are included that in the Parks and Recreation component as well as the Southern Perk component. But as mentioned through Ms. Baker, there is a deficiency in the parkland space still. So, and I would note for council's consideration as well, there is a park located directly to the east of this development and directly adjacent to it as well, to that larger development. Currently, it's just being vacant, but I understand that there is being consideration for a future park to be implemented down in that area as well too. So there is a parkland as well, park space directly adjacent to this development also. So, and also just a note through the mayor. In response to the highway commercial designation, I do appreciate the note from Councilor Rothwell ahead of time on that one. It is looks like it's being carried forward for neighborhood commercial, and we can have some discussions with the applicant around that and that consideration for that. Just the neighborhood commercial dedication versus the highway commercial, there is more of a neighborhood component being considered in the new official plans that references more personal services as well as I'll say convenience stores. That's the easier way to put it, where highway commercial would be more kind of in and out traffic and that end of things. So we can have those discussions with the applicant. Currently, we are asking for consideration for a highway commercial zone through the zoning bylaw, so that would reference the existing highway commercial policies in the Northport zoning bylaw.
Okay. I have the obvious question. Don't walk away. So we're in this interregnum period between old official plan and new official plan, and what should we as councillors come to understand about being in that sort of transition zone?
Through the mayor, in response to the question, I'm not entirely versed in it. At the same time, there is considerations for both official plans at this point in time. That's maybe the plannery's comment. We're asking that the council has previously supported the previous official plan, which was for highway commercial, and that's what the zoning is lining up to be, and it's consistent with the existing zoning in place. We are recognizing that and carrying that forward. Subject to a future, I'll say, consolidated zoning bylaw amendment when it comes forward to council at that time, that probably would bring that question back to the table at forefront again, if that commercial block was, say, undeveloped at that time. So maybe it puts some onus to have that developed sooner rather than later, would be my comment.
I see. Okay. Ms. Baker, you kind of waved your hand at me I'm, please come forward if you have a comment to make. I think we want to understand some of our options here. So
Certainly to the mayor, I just wanted to add some further comments on that. So, actually, from a statutory legal perspective, the adopted, not yet approved new county official plan has no legal status. In terms of the applications before you this evening, they have to comply, conform, be consistent with the policies that are in force today, which is your listable ward official plan, which designates the site as highway commercial, and certainly for the zoning before you to be in conformity with your official plan, the highway commercial would be the appropriate zone. We're happy to continue to work with County of Perth staff. In my view, likely potentially it might have just been an unintentional oversight in terms of that designation, because certainly it was not brought to us by county staff that they had an issue with the highway commercial designation. My understanding, I did attend the County of Perth presentation for the new OP. Certainly, staff can speak for it to themselves, but I believe at that meeting they had talked about upwards of 2 years before provincial approval. So certainly, we want to have regard for new policies as planners, but in terms of legal applicability, that block is designated highway commercial in the listable ward OP. So happy to continue working with county planning staff through the provincial review of their OP that's been submitted and some of that rationale. But certainly, again, we're following the planning documents in force and effect.
so if this were in effect, like if we proceed, that particular lot or block or whatever we're going to call it would be considered highway commercial based on current zoning bylaw. And when we got to a new official plan that had neighborhood designation applied there, the correction would happen in the new zoning bylaw associated with this potentially, right? Am I following the bouncing ball here, the CEOs now?
Well, Carolyn's correct. The official plan that's in force in effect right now is the local official plan, which is a highway commercial. We'll either have to work with county staff in making amendments to the current official plans before the province, or at the time it's adopted, work with the applicant to correct that at the time.
Okay, just wanted to know. Let's not go too much further here, Councillor Rathwell.
I certainly agree with what Planner Baker has said in that respect, but I underscore the reason why this new official plan should have been presented to this council and to staff before it was adopted. This is something that could very well have been caught before, and yes, we can correct it afterwards. It's just a matter of in the thinking that was before county planners is that all of the highway commercial would be on the north side. So, irrespective of the fact that this is probably the most recently adopted amendment to the plan, they skipped over, they missed, whatever. They just didn't recognize that the issue of the development before them. So that's an issue of concern that I have. I'm just wondering if our staff could pull up page 126 of our report photo, and I just wanted, just for council's information, the public's information, this is the air photo that shows all the different zones, but it also shows the adjacent property to the east, the subdivision there, and points the issue in terms of where that parkland is on the subdivision immediately to the east that Planner Garland was talking about. So if you could just focus in, you see where the large block is, pink, I'll call it, / purple. And it's just to the east there, at least on ours, it's more legible. That immediately to the east of that boundary is a PR zone and a PR-2. I believe that's the parkland area that Planner Garland was talking about. There it is, PR and PR-2. I believe that's it. Is that correct, Planner Garland? Yeah.
Yes, through the mayor. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And just for clarification, while we're on that, the stormwater management pond area is the area immediately to the west of that block that we were just talking about, the pink one. So what if we go west of that, and it's that's outlined in a
Reddish, burgundy color.
Yeah, burgundy. Let's use that word, burgundy. That's the stormwater management area, and then the neon green, I'll say, is where the proposed parkland area. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Just for everyone, so we can follow the bell. But I would suggest it would be appropriate if council agrees to take additional time to look at this, if it's agreed, November 18th would be our possible ability for that on the agenda, and my view would be that should give us ample time to have a response back for county council for their consideration at their first meeting in December, if that's the timeline. So frankly, there's no delay in that respect, in my view, if this council needs additional time to address those issues of concern which have been brought to our attention here this evening.
Through the mayor, I'm always in favor of informed and decision. I mean, so if that's the will of council, I'm happy to bring this back. I will admit it may be a very similar presentation, but happy to bring it back if there's additional questions or comments that can be made in turn for council's consideration. So,
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Garland. CAO Snell.
And so I appreciate the complexity of this development. It's one of the largest developments we've dealt with in a number of years. I guess just in making sure, keeping in mind Don's comments that he has been working with staff and our consultants, and his consultants have been working together for quite some time. If between now and the 18th, council would like some specific questions asked, it'd be appropriate to get them to us as soon as possible so we can have them addressed on the 18th and not cause further delay.
Sure. Thank you. I understand. Anyone else with any questions about this before we, Councillor Andrees?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. I'm not sure who to address this to, but the question is around the 12-meter elevation of Block 124. And I'm not sure about the process about how many stories it would be. Does that information come to us at a later stage than this stage? And I mean, that's the question I have. And is that something that can be answered in, by the next meeting?
CEO Snell has the answer.
So zoning, we put restrictions on the height, not necessarily the amount of stories. So now in theory it wouldn't be possible because of the building code, but you could have as many stories in that 12 meters as possible, whether that be, and that could be a single family home or a townhouse. You could have 3-story single family homes as long as they stay within the zoning requirements of that piece of property. So you could have a single family home that went the full 10.5 meters is allowed in most single family lots, or 2 or 3 stories on one that goes 12 meters, or in accessory buildings too that also have that same height.
So, is there a possible way of finding out or getting a decision by the developer around what their thoughts are around the number of stories, or is it just they're allowed to develop the number of stories they want to within the 12 meters?
So, for example, even on the houses that are already built in Winchester, one of them could be torn down tomorrow, and a 3-story house can be put up as 10.5 meters. That would be correctly allowed within that zone. So, the zoning is what the property owner at the time has to conform to. So, even a building that's put there tomorrow can be torn down the next day and rebuilt, as long as it conforms to the zoning of that property. So even though there's all bungalows in our neighborhood today, that's not necessarily what will happen tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Can I make an observation? I try not to do this too often, but it does seem like Block 124 is a significant irritant in the minds of the people who are living on Winchester. And the question I haven't heard a really great answer to yet is, why is it there? Like, why are we proposing that higher density, affordable place right there up against those properties when there's ample space on the other side? Now, I know this, perhaps confounds design principles and effort that's been made, but I'd rather have some sort of collegial cooperation and understanding in the neighborhood there than to see this sort of continued opposition and concern. And I'm sure that it strikes me that it could be achieved if there was will. I know maybe that's, being too opinionated about this at this point, but I am kind of uncomfortable about this. If we could find a way to sort of move that higher density block to the other side of the subdivision or somewhere else in the plan, I think we would have more cooperation from the neighborhood, and that we would see a better outcome generally, broadly for the community. I have to admit that there was an interesting lure about Block 124, and that it's talked about as being one of the affordable and attainable. And so for me, it kind of checks a box, right? But if the neighbors feel that their enjoyment of their property and so forth is at risk, and there's any possibility of moving it to a place where there's less interference with their enjoyment, I think that should be considered. I'd recommend that it be considered. So I don't know how to proceed except to offer those comments and invite consideration. Colleagues, any other questions or comments before we exit this public meeting? We don't in the public meeting actually pass a resolution that follows typically, right? So I just want to make sure that those who are attending and not familiar with our process understand that we're about to close this meeting, and it seems like we haven't resolved anything, but there's an opportunity to resolve something next when we're back in our regular session. All right. So seeing no further questions or comments, notice of the decision of Council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can adjourn this public meeting. What that means in practice, from a procedural perspective, is that I'm going to now declare that our recess period during which the public meeting was held is now over, and I call our regular meeting of council back into properly constituted session. It is getting pretty. Yeah, I don't think he wants to come back yet. No, I think he's still implicated in what's happening here. Not yet. We love you, Dave. Um, All right. So, before us is a resolution that is, from my take in 6 years as being mayor, the longest resolution I've ever seen. It is 8 pages long, 7 in a bit. And I've never seen a resolution this long. I think my colleagues are very grateful that I'm not going to read it into the record, because I used to do that and had to learn that sometimes it was like reading the phone book to deal with these things. So I have a resolution here that has been prepared for Council's consideration. I think in the public meeting we heard from Councillor Blazek that she would like an alternative action. And so I'm going to turn to her first and see if she still has a desire for an alternative action.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I would like to move that we defer a decision on this proposed draft plan of subdivision until our next council meeting on November 18th.
Okay. Do you have any conditions or suggestions for questions, perhaps for the proponent? Like, is there anything we want to do there, or do we want to, as CAOs seem to suggest, put a period in place for councillors to ask the questions that can be referred to the proponent? Is that
If that is the will of council, I am certainly open to it.
okay? Thank you. All right, so I think we have. I'm happy to allow. I think the resolution is in order at this point. Moved by Councillor Blazek. Who would like to second this? Councillor Duncan would like to second this. Thank you. Do we have any further discussion or debate? Do we have any cautions from staff at this point about this resolution that you want us to hear before we consider the resolution? CEOs, no? Anything that you're worried about? Okay, so we have a resolution. Do we have rough wording? You want to read this back into the record for us, Klein?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, we have the resolution as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth defers a decision on draft plan of subdivision MP 01-24 and zoning bylaw amendment Z06-2024 until the November 18th, 2024 council meeting.
Thank you, with an understanding that there's opportunity for any of us to add additional questions, take up the residents on their offer to come and see all of those possibilities. And I think in the aftermath of this meeting, I trust that CAOs now or someone, maybe it's Chief Pape, will send us guidance about how soon we want, or that the staff team wants these comments in order from council. All right, everyone understand what we've got on the floor? Everyone comfortable now with having a vote called? Okay, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, I think a brief health break is in order. Let's take till about 9:03. We'll come back at 9:03. Okay, we're going to resume our meeting at this point in time. We're going to turn our attention to item 9 on our agenda. First, item 9.1, reports from the Corporate Services Department. And item 9.1.1 presents to Council the financial statements for the corporation's 2022 financial year and invites their approval and the actions that must be taken to finalize same with the province of Ontario. We have some compliance things there. So I'm going to invite Mr. Romani, our treasurer, to address this item. Welcome, Mr. Romani.
Thank you, Mayor Kaisenberg. So tonight before you have the 2022 audited financial statements for your review and approval. With the change in the municipality's general ledger structure back in 2022, staffing changes that have been subsequent to that, and also staffing at the BDO level has hindered the audit timelines, but we are now pleased to have these before you tonight. So tonight we have Mr. Desaccio from BDO to provide an overview of the statements and answer any questions about them. Subsequent to the approval of these statements, the goal is to get the 2023 statements underway as soon as possible to enable the municipality to return to a normal audit timeline, with the also having 2024 statements approved within the 2025 years, so the year subsequent to the fiscal year. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Mr. Desaccio.
Thank you. I don't know if I can take control of the screen or not. Or if we want to start on page 208 of the... Can I share? Let's see if, yeah. Okay, I'll share my screen. All right. So good evening, and my name is Fruto Desaccio, partner at BDO. Been a partner for going on to 13 years. So happy to be presenting tonight. I make this joke all the time that hopefully this is a boring presentation. That means it's a good thing if your auditor presentation is boring. So we'll highlight some items on the auditor's report. Just very high level. It's what we consider clean audit opinion. So no qualifications or restrictions in terms of the opinion being provided and presented. We've had full support of management throughout and getting through a difficult period with a mass changeover in the team, but full support in anything and everything we wanted to do. So no disagreements on anything on any front there. So appreciate that. So it's 2 pages, and again, in summary, it's what we consider a clean audit opinion and no issues to note to council. I'll just provide some brief financial statement highlights for council to consider. So the first is your consolidated statement of financial position. So it's a snapshot really at December 31st, 2022, with comparatives to 2021 of the financial position of municipality. So we had cash and cash equivalents, 27 million. Included in that is deferred charges of 8.8, as well as general funds. So that increase from 18 million to 27 is partly there, partly some of it's spoken for in accounts payable. So nothing of audit consequences there. No audit concerns or items to note on taxes receivable, accounts receivable, or drain receivables. When we go to our investments here, that $19 million is market-linked GICs that are protected in terms of the overall amount you'll receive, which is 19 million, and provide for some upside potential in terms of growth. So total financial assets, 55 million, increase of about 10 million over the prior year, mostly sitting in cash. Make this a little bit bigger. On the liability side, we have our accounts payable. The main increase there relates to some construction projects that were close to year end. Deferred revenue, mostly deferred development charges, were $18 million, close to the prior year. Long-term debt, being paid down in approximately $1 million increments principal a year was $23.4 million at the end of 2022. And solid waste closure and post-closure liabilities relates to landfills. That liability is set at $4 million. You'll see next year there's a new standard being implemented called asset retirement obligation. So when we present the 23s, you'll see that change at that point and how it's being presented. It's a much more robust area. So total financial liabilities, 51 million versus 48 in the prior year, which ended up in a positive net financial assets of $3.7 million, which is nice to see compared to the negative 2.5 million in the prior year. The non-financial assets include tangible capital assets, your roads, buildings, culverts, drains, $58 million, which is fairly close to the prior year, meaning the amortization that we wrote off was fairly equal to the additions during the year. So total accumulated surplus for the municipality increased $7.2 million to $162.9 million for the year. So again, fairly positive in respect to where the municipality is sitting from a financial position at the end of 22. I will again make this very high level because you did have the numbers in your package. Taxation revenue was up 6% to 17.7, combination of rate increases, but also increased base, no issues at all. It's hard to think at 2022 when we see user fees and services going up to $2 million there. It's really things coming back on board after COVID. Hopefully that's the last time we'll have to talk about that part. But daycare, user fees, so everything kind of coming back to where whatever normal was, as well as government grants increased substantially in terms of provincial grants that were available and you applied to, as well as gas tax money from the federal government. So total revenue, $39 million, up $3.4 million, $3.5 million in the prior year, and substantially higher than budget. It's hard to budget sometimes for what these grants are, and a lot of these grants will also match to some spending. On the spending side, you have it presented this way, as well as in within the notes you'll see it by segment, but no audit concerns at all there with respect to any payroll or any services that were rendered. So total expenditures fairly close to budget, as close as you can probably get, at 31.9 million compared to 31.99 million for the year, which left with a positive annual surplus of 7.2. And it's important that we note that we have an annual surplus when you look at plans for expansions and plans for additions, having the ability to fund your reserves and be in a positive position to make those outlays at future dates with monies that you have set aside is wonderful. And again, that's how we get to from 155 million to 162 in terms of accumulated net assets. I'll leave it there, and I know you've had the financial statements, and I know it's been a long meeting, so if there's questions on notes, I'm happy to go through them or present anything else, but I'll leave it to you, your worship and council for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's turn to council. Any questions or first comments for a consultant or for Mr. Romani? No, not seeing any. So let's consider the resolution then that we have before us related to this matter. As follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the 2022 financial statements report for information And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the Municipality of North Perth 2022 consolidated financial statements and the 2022 Cemetery Care and Maintenance Trust Fund financial statements. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes the Mayor and Treasurer to sign the letters of representation with BDO Canada LLP for their audit and accounting services regarding the 2022 consolidated financial statements and the 2022 Cemetery Care and Maintenance Trust Fund financial statements. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Congratulations, Mr. Romani, for seeing that through. All right, and thank you to our consultant for joining us tonight. Next, we have two items from the Facilities Department. It's item 9.2.1. Council is presented with a report pertaining to site location and design parameters for replacement outdoor public swimming pool and associated amenities in Listowel. I'm going to call on Jeff Newell, our Manager of Facilities, to provide us with an overview of actions that are proposed at this time. And I'm giving him the discretion to call on any consultant at his discretion. Mr. Newell, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg, and good evening, members of council. With regards to the pool, aquatic study was done in 2020 to review the site of the Listowel Kinsman Pool at Memorial Park. The report at that time indicated that the pool was constructed back in 1965 and was at the end of its life cycle and was required to be replaced. Council approved that the Facilities Department to select an architect to complete a design and drawings for a proposed pool. Staff from both the programs and facilities departments worked with the architects in the design process. Safety, accessibility, storage, change rooms, parking, and facility maintenance were all considered in the design phase. Drawings and a cost estimate are part of tonight's presentation by Scott Robinson from the firm architects Tillman, Ruth, and Robinson. So he will present a plan, and then I'll come back and answer any questions and then talk about the recommendations as well. Thanks.
Okay, are you with us?
Hello.
There
yes. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
Or is there a presentation?
The clerk is giving me the nod, so I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Let me try to pull this up. That looks familiar. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, thank you. It's on.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. My name's Scott Robinson. I'm Principal and Director of Design with Tillman Ruth Robinson, and happy to be here to present what we've done to date so far. It's an exciting project, and we're looking forward to it continuing on. I will keep this somewhat brief. I just wanted to chat a bit about the existing conditions that we were looking at that Jeff alluded to, and the preferred site and how the building is going to lay out on that site with respect to the pool, the parking, and the bathhouse itself. And then we've got some Class C cost estimates that have been prepared by our cost consultant. So as you are aware, the existing pool was an option for redeveloping that site, demolishing the pool and the bathhouse and sort of starting new, but leaving the splash pad intact. Working through the design, it became very obvious very quickly that that site was just a little too small for the new facility and the accessible bathhouse, and it also has some challenges with some pretty steep grading as the site drops off. So we looked at what we call the ball diamond site, and that certainly has more room to play with, if you will. It's more generous space, and it will easily accommodate the pool, the bathhouse, and some much needed parking. So we looked at that site, And you can see that sort of at the bottom of the page. I'm not sure, hopefully people can see my cursor, but if not, it's at the bottom of the page so we can see additional parking, and the new bathhouse is shaded in gray, and then the new pool. And you can sort of just see graphically how large that development is compared to, you know, your existing pool and bathhouse. So we were able to utilize that site, but still leave some nice green space and buffer at the street and the existing, I guess it's a band shell shelter. So we were able to leave that as well. So just moving to the site itself, here we can see sort of a blow up of the bathhouse at the top, sort of the L-shaped building, and the pool, and sort of that relationship that they have to each other and to the site. So if we look at the pool or the bathhouse plan, we've got, it's essentially about 4,500 square feet. So you'll come into a main entry point, and there'll be what we call a control area or a reception area where somebody will meet and greet and direct you to the change rooms. We've got 3 accessible change rooms. One is the male to the left side of the entry, and then we have a barrier-free family change room to the right, and then another female change room further to the right of that. So all these change rooms will be accessible, and there'll be access to the deck via the showers. The staff area, we have, as I said, a control station there. We have the guard area and first aid station. The staff also has area for a little kitchenette and a lunch area, as well as their own washroom and shower facilities. And again, access directly to the site. So the building is quite efficient in planning, and we worked through a number of different scenarios to get to this plan. I should also note down at the bottom of the page on the left-hand side, you can see we've got some mechanical, electrical equipment room for the pool and the building itself, and that will be accessed via laneway off the parking as well. And we've got some outdoor, or we have some deck storage for some of the outdoor equipment that will be on the deck area. So then moving to the pool itself, Jeff and Amy and their staff were really great. We went through a number of iterations. We wanted to, create, this multi-purpose, multi-function pool that could be programmed easily and be fully accessible and available to young and old, and regardless of ability. So the pool we came up with is fairly straightforward. We've got the what we call a zero beach entry, so a very gradual slope into the pool that is represented by that sort of light blue area. And we'll have some water features there for the kids and stuff. And then there'll be a barrier-free ramp as well, which gets you down to the 3-foot level, which is sort of a little darker blue than that. And that will be a flat area that will go into the 6-lane, 25 meters lap pool. So we've got a kind of a free-form area there, which will have additional water features, a great area for kids to start learning how to swim, and some instructional areas. And then, as I said, it sort of goes into the flat area of the pool, which will be great for aquafit and those type of classes. And then the deep ends, we get down to 10-foot 2. We've got a 14-foot long diving board, and we're looking at a slide feature as well. So there's going to be definitely multi-use, and as I said, a pool that can be easily programmed. So that was something that was in the forefront of our design as we were working with the aquatic staff there. And then around the pool itself, we've got some nice shade structures and trellis. So the thinking there, again, just provide more shade. We want to encourage community members and families to come and hang out for the day, and really enjoy themselves. So having some shade is going to be important for that. Then we've got a couple images to show you. Sorry, I guess I can just look at we have gone through the detailed drawings for the pool layout as well as the building. So we have gone through that design development phase of the project. So, just ensuring we've got accessibility and safety and meeting all applicable codes. So we've done a fair bit of work with our pool consultants on the project as well. And I was getting so excited about the renders, I jumped ahead. So a couple 3D images that we wanted to share with you. This is the front of the building itself. So the bathhouse is the front facade, which is adjacent, obviously, to the parking. So we've got a nice welcoming front door to the facility. We've got an opportunity to have some signage and a bit of a mural that will sort of further announce the building and have a bit of an accent wall there. For materials, we're looking at brick and some stone with some wood accents. So I think, those materials are nice, kind of contextual materials that will fit in well with the neighborhood, but also with the surrounding park. And we've got like this bird's eye view of the facility. So this really tells the story of the multi-use pool. You can see very clearly the 6-lane, 25-meter lap swim, the diving area, and the beach entry that, the kids will come in. We got water features and the shade structures and trellis, and the guard station, again, great sight lines into the pool, and the change areas will come off and right onto the deck as well. So I think this picture kind of tells a good story, and hopefully people can see some of the excitement that's going to be happening. And we've got one last image here from the deck. Again, just showing the shade structures and some of the different functions that are happening within the pool. It's going to be, I think, a really great project, and it's nice to see that we'll be able to have this continuity of the outdoor pool, as Jeff said, from 1965. So an important amenity for the community for sure. So after we finished the design development, we went to our cost consultants and we looked at a fairly detailed Class D report. I'm not sure if the whole report was sent through to the council, but it's about a 58-page document, and currently just over $8 million. But that is including a 10% is what we call design contingency of about $1 million. So we're expecting that number to come down a bit as we sort of finalize the design and take some of the question marks out of the project. And just as a breakdown, the pool itself, mechanical is about 1.4 million, and then around the pool, the concrete, and the works around the decking is about 1.8. So, roughly 3.6.7 million just for the pool alone. The bathhouse is coming in about 2.65 million, which is just about $550 a square foot, which is certainly in keeping with the prices we're seeing now. And then we've got another close to $1 million in site services, landscaping, and parking. So essentially, that's in a nutshell what we've been up to with Jeff and Amy and their staff over the last year and a bit. And as I said, it seems like a very exciting project for us. So we're hoping it continues. And if there's any questions that I can answer or Jeff, happy to do so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Arnold, do you have any sort of finishing comments before we open up to council questions?
Yes, so with regards to the recommendations that we've got here, the first one is that we get council's approval of the proposed design and the site location at Memorial Park. And then with regards to the pricing that Scott shared with us, we would need to come back with a revised timeline for the project completion, as the 2025 anticipated budget numbers aren't aligned with what the final design cost is. So we would look at addressing that with an extended time period in order to have the work done and budgeted for. So that was the first recommendation. The second recommendation is that we would do undergo a temporary renovation to continue operations at the Listowel Kinsman Pool until the new pool is constructed. We don't have, that hasn't been tendered yet, so we don't know what the cost could be, but it could be close to $400,000, and it would still not address any accessibility needs. It would be tank refurbishment, basically, as we would need to repair the tank. So we would like to do that as a temporary fix. And finally, we would like to apply for a community sport and recreation infrastructure fund grant, which would fund up to half of the amount that we're looking for in order to make this project a reality. And we need council endorsement to go ahead and apply for that funding. So the process is well underway. We just need a council resolution, and then we can submit our grant application. I'd be happy to answer any questions, certainly, other than just the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions, comments? Oh, we got all kinds of hands. Let's go with Councillor Gordon first, and then Councillor Rothwell. I thought, did Councillor Richardson, was I hallucinating potentially? Did you wave your hand too? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Thanks through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Thanks for the presentation, Jeff, and the consultant. So there's currently a splash pad behind the old pool. How does that align with, say, the new aquatic facility? Is there infrastructure for that splash pad that's connected to the current old pool?
So yes, there is the splash pad is adjacent to the pool, and the infrastructure for that splash pad is associated with the underneath the pavilion, so separate from the pool. Like, it is not a heated feature or anything like that, so it is separate and could remain there. We would need to look at repurposing that space where the pool is, so that could become a change house. That could become a bathroom facility, much needed in Memorial Park as well. But that would give us a footprint to work with to accommodate people that are using the splash pad.
Okay, Councillor Rothwell, I think we had you up second.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thanks, Jeff and Scott, our consultant there. So you addressed my one question regarding the reuse of the existing site and the costs breakdown. We didn't receive the breakdown, obviously, but the cost to actually demolish the existing pool and so on, is that incorporated into that?
No, it wasn't incorporated as part of that, and good point. It would be something that we would have to look at. It might be part of those contingencies that we've got planned, right? So.
Indeed. I can see all of us out there with our shovels and pails filling it in. Okay, Councillor Richardson, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg, and thank you for the report. I guess I'm a little biased here because I'm a lifelong resident that I guess I'm kind of used to the pool to where it is now, and I don't know how keen I am on moving it. And I understand it's across the street. I don't have that much of an issue with it, but it just sort of, I know the other park gets used, Ball Diamond gets used, we'll be losing that portion of it. Now, was there an approximate estimation as to how much of that plot where the band show is park would this would take up?
I don't have a square footage of that. I do know that we did look at option one, was to replace in the existing location. What you would run into there is, with a 12-month construction period, you'd lose a season out of the pool for sure. And then just Scott had alluded to the fact that the topography there, everything runs away, and there's just not enough room to get the accessible features into that pool. So that was a primary concern there. We would look at building an additional ballpark at another site because ball is taking off as far as a popularity, and as we continue to grow, we will need to further develop ballparks as well. So that would be probably in the $400,000 range to do another ballpark.
How much?
400 with lighting and everything else. Yeah, as opposed to just doing a T-ball park somewhere else, make it multi-purpose. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, who else? Councillor Andreessen?
Thank you for you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Thanks, Jeff. Just wondering if there's any consideration for doing some community fundraising for this project, and if that could factor into, you know, phasing in, and I know you can't phase in a pool, but I mean like phasing in the start time of putting this pool in if we did some fundraising with our community. Just any thoughts around that?
Yes, thank you. We have looked at, both Ashley and I have talked about any money that we can put into this project sooner, like if we were to get the grant or if a service club wanted to contribute to it or do a naming opportunity. What that does is it takes the start date of the construction and moves that forward because we would realize funds sooner rather than later, and we could move the project sooner up in the schedule.
So if I may, thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Just so you're saying that that would be a consideration is seeking community fundraising
Yes,
as part of this process.
that's right. We would have a campaign for fundraising. We've already reached out to service clubs that say that they'll support it. They haven't given us a number or whatever yet, but they are also interested in being involved in the project.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blazek next, and then Councillor Duncan.
Thanks to you, Mayor Kiesenberg, and thank you, Jeff. The community funding, if this is something that we can make happen, is that going to have any impact on the grant potentially? You did say that they would potentially fund up to 50% of what the municipality invests, and so I'm just wondering if that would lessen or impact the grant if we accepted community funding.
The community funding is the grant, I think. If I've got that right, no?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, like community fundraising
Oh,
efforts.
community
Like if
fundraising.
service groups wanted to contribute or individuals wanted to contribute within the community.
Yeah, we would say that the grant itself would be the first part of it, and then we need to fundraise, budget, do whatever we can to get the second half of the project, which we've already identified that there is some money available there, but we're looking for half of the cost of the overall project.
Councillor Duncan, I think you're next.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. Did I hear you right, Jeff? You said you're looking at a 12-month construction timeline?
That's correct. If the cost estimate that we have provided to us is based on a spring 2025 start, if this gets pushed back into future budget years, then there would be a percentage that would go up every year, but we're still looking at a 12-month window for construction.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask about the finances because I mean, when you talk about that sort of $4 million that we optimistically would be responsible for, and $8 million if it was the total package and we didn't get grant funds. So that $4 million against our capital projections and comfort. Is that actually available anytime soon, or and this might be that the treasurer might need to collaborate with you on the answer to this because certainly I have concern about capital expenses over the next several years, and I'm not so sure that the pool is actually financially in order in the next several years. But I'd like to hear both of your comments on this.
That's true, Mayor Kiesenberg. Next Friday, we'll be releasing the 10-year capital forecast as part of the 2025 budget process. That'll speak a bit more in detail of the appropriate timing from a cash flow perspective. Still working out the little details on what years it kind of land in. looking kind of right now in the next 5 years. So it's not 10 years out, just to ease that.
But it may not be next year. I mean, to Councillor Duncan's question about a 1 year construction, and there was a mention of 2025. I don't think we want the media to run away with that story at this point. If we approve or work on a resolution that gets approved tonight, it still is going into the capital forecasting and capital planning, and that could take this project out to 2029 for all we know. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's unlikely that it would be. We would recommend it in 2025 from a cash flow perspective.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, staff. So, again, going back, this is a pool that's given us 60 years of service, and frankly, that's probably about 20 years more than anyone anticipated. We know that we're going to have to do this at some point, and it's only going to get more expensive. I understand the issues that we have before us. The other issue, of course, is the second part of the resolution here that deals with investments to have the Listowel pool made safe to be able to operate here for X number of years to get us to that point. And I think I heard the number 400,000 ish. Clearly, most of us would not want to spend $400,000 for a year of operations. We'd like to see that a little bit further out. But frankly, the more time we have under that decreases the price of what we are going to have for the pool. So as long as we recognize and understand that, we've got budget meetings coming up, so I'm sure we're going to have lots of conversation. But it's a important staple of our community. If we get 60 years out of the new one, we'll be very, very fortunate.
I need to point out that I was born in 1965, and when he was talking about the pool being sort of at the end of its life cycle, I was thinking, am I? Councillor Johnston, this is a hammer. All right, let's see who's next. Councillor Duncan, let's have you. Actually, can you hold? Because Councillor Anston hasn't weighed in and he just waved his hand, so let's have him in.
Thank you, Mayor Caseberg, through you and Jeff. Thanks for the report and thanks to the consultant, Scott, as well. I know that the last aquatic study was done in 2020. I'm just curious as to where the Atwood pool fits into all this. I know it was built in 1991. Can you maybe just refresh council on its life expectancy or where we're at with that? Thank you.
Unfortunately, I've been spending an awful lot of time focusing on the Memorial Park pool. We would need to look at accessibility as far as meeting standards with that pool as well. But as far as the structure itself, it's in good shape. We've just done a filtration system in that pool. We've got some other recommended work that we'll do this year, but it's just kind of standard maintenance and upkeep, and we'll continue to invest in it.
So, supplemental. So it has, it would take probably 20 years, give or take?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan.
So just building on Councillor Rothwell's comments, do you think this 400,000 will get us out 4 years, 5 years?
I would think it would, yes. It really is about patching cracks. That's really what it comes down to. And so it's very difficult when you're working with older material that you know that it is actually going to hold and work and not deteriorate the tank itself. But that, given some of the pricing that we've looked at, that's about the most affordable way to do it. You could drop close to $2 million in there to replace a lot of things. That may get you 15 years, but we don't want 15 years, and it still would not address accessibility issues that we have with the facility, and doesn't touch the bathhouse. So,
okay, anyone else? Councillor Johnston, and watch your words though.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not that much younger than you are, so no comments about that. So I'm actually quite thrilled and enthusiastic about the new site. I think it looks, the Scott's drawings look pretty awesome. I think it would be a great enhancement. I know we'd lose a ball diamond, but we can really enhance Memorial Park. I think the parking aspect of it is awesome, and I'm quite thrilled with it. And yes, that $8 million is quite a bite. But I'm worried about spending the 400,000. I think it's almost putting good money after bad or bad money after good, because it might get us 4 years, but then the price of what we looked at tonight would likely be 10 or 12. So spending 400,000 might cost us $1 million or $2 million down the road. So that does concern me some. So I'd like to see how Ashton can kind of run his magic and see if we can get this maybe kept on the docket sooner than later.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Nurdum and I are starting to sweat too, as involved on the budget committee. So yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else wanting to offer comment or question or propose an approach forward? Do we want to consider the resolution that we have directly? Okay, Councillor Blazek, go ahead.
Just really quickly, thank you through you, Mayor. Can you remind us what happens if we don't invest $400,000 into the pool?
You're running the risk of losing operation of that pool for the foreseeable future if it fails.
Okay. Is there any reason to assume that we couldn't provide shuttles from the current site to the outlet pool for the sake of providing the service in an interim basis?
I think it would be very difficult with the popularity of swimming and how busy both of those facilities are to accommodate. We would have to do reductions of what we currently offer at that pool in order to accommodate an influx of people.
Okay, thank you. It's important to know. CAO Snell.
And Jeff, I don't know if you know this, but there's a number of grant applications open right now just for council's benefit. Do we know when a decision will be made on this community recreational infrastructure grant?
So unfortunately, we don't know when. There isn't a date given to us of when we will know, simply because this one is open while the fund is being administered and funds giving out. So there was Stream 1, which was due last week. Stream 2 is an ongoing intake. So we don't know when we would find out. What I can say is it's 200 million across the province, and there's a number of communities that are looking at this as an option, and let's hope that a rural pool is an exciting opportunity for them.
If I do the math, there are 444 municipalities in Ontario, and I'm betting that every single one of them is eyeing an application for $200 million fund. Interesting. Yeah.
But they won't be the last either, right? So,
right. Yeah. I would caution we should not pin all that much hope on scoring a grant from that fund. I don't think we should think that way. We should plan for the plan B and assume that that's the operating principle here. Anyone else with questions or comments at this point? Okay, how would we like to proceed? We have a resolution prepared for us. You understand it. It has 3 parts. I've heard concern about each of the parts, actually, I think, at this point. Maybe not the grant part, but remember, faint hope. So the first 2 parts, the first one speaks to the location and design and sort of the costing that we're seeing at this point, having a general understanding of that. The second piece of the resolution speaks to the temporary renovation to the local pool to try to hold us through for a few years. Do we want to consider all of that together? Do we want to consider this as separate motions? How would you like to proceed? Councillor Duncan.
I'll be willing to move the motion as one.
Okay, so then let's read it into the record and see where it goes. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth endorses the proposed design and site location of the new Memorial Park pool with staff submission of a revised timeline for project completion as part of the 2025 budget discussion. And that the current Listowel Kinsman public pool undergoes a temporary renovation to continue operations until the new pool is constructed, and that staff are directed to apply for Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund Stream 2 funding for a new outdoor pool build. Moved by Councillor Duncan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Callum. Sounds good. All right. Discussion, debate, comments further. Councillor Rothwood.
Thanks, very Todd. Just with respect to the first issue regarding location, I know it's a change. But I think even though I've gone there with our children, now with our grandchildren, that it's great for the location of the splash pad and so on for anyone that has younger children there and so on. But that's exactly the reason why the splash pad was put there, because it was right adjacent to the pool. So given the fact that it's a far better, in my view, a far better location in terms of the new proposed location that gives additional space and parking and so on, we'll have to ensure the safety of children and parents going back and forth between the splash pad and the swimming pool, which I'm sure staff are quite aware of, because that splash pad is a very busy spot, and young children don't always look both ways. So I'm certainly in favor of the new location, and I'm in favor of the balance. And hopefully, our community will come to the forefront in terms of providing funds to help us do this. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with comments? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you. Just a clarification. So the reno would be 400,000.
What I would do is, this is not a tendered price that we have
Okay.
to deal with. So what I would do is I would look for getting a project underway to see what the cost would be. We could put a cap on it or something to that effect. But until we have a real good study done on it, I can't estimate what it would be, and I don't want to hold council to that. I would rather bring it back as project planning for next year.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I have kind of concerns here, I have to admit. I find myself sort of vaguely uncomfortable about the implications of what to do with the existing pool site, which is something that the last council had to deal with the Memorial Arena and what to do with that. So we're going to have costs that are sort of blind to us at this point. And I have some reservations about certainly the challenges that come with the temporary renovation and where that budget could take us. It could get very expensive very fast from kind of what I'm reading in the tea leaves here. So I am rather concerned about this one. At the same time, I will admit that I rather do like the notion, even though I believe personally it's a faint hope of applying for the fund. And if I think the question that council needs to consider is, if we landed the grant, let's say we got half of this price paid, would we borrow? Would we borrow for the sake of building this new facility? Because I think that's what would have to happen, relatively speaking. We'd probably have to borrow. I'm looking at Mr. Romani. He's kind of, maybe he can be a wizard, like you said, but maybe not, right? A lot of faith. Put that in his performance review, please, for the year. Thank you. So I do think we have to sort of soul search that question. Would we borrow if we were to be given the $4 million to build this sooner rather than later? And how do we think about the borrowing in the context of other municipal projects, right? There are substantial infrastructure projects that lie ahead in the next 10-year window for the municipality. And if we aren't careful, we could easily blow out our borrowing capacity. And that's a concern that I have here, right? I guess my concern, actually, now that I'm sort of talking it through publicly, is that it would be useful to see the budget information before making a deep commitment here, right? And I think that's something that Councillor Nordham and I have had a little bit of a peek ahead of council seeing this really soon. But I have some concerns about borrowing here. CAO Snell.
So I haven't had any discussions with either Jeff or finance on this, but can you consider just the second and that the Blissful Kinsman Pool project for temporary renovation to continue operations be included in the 2025 budget process?
Right. The only thing that I think is disappointing about that is that the opportunity for the funds, the matched funds from the federal government, could be missed under that context, right? But I don't know how ready we are and what the readiness requirements are of the grant either. So,
Well, I think that would allow us to proceed with the grant, but the temporary, that would give Jeff some more time to actually put together a more solid number on what the temporary renovation would look like. We could almost get tenure ready, and then council can see the whole budget picture as we bring it forward.
Right. So if I'm following your recommendations, CS, or the advice that you're hinting might work here, and I know that you're largely appeasing me at this point, you're suggesting that perhaps the first part of the resolution is put on hold tonight. We sort of take it out of the resolution.
No, I think we keep the first part as the long-term replacement be included in the 10-year capital plan, and then a more detailed chart on the renovations be brought back as part of the 2025 budget as well.
Okay, so this resolution might need a little bit of work if we're to try to fix this. Yes?
Might go on another path.
Staff is conferring. I can sing while they do this if you like. Okay, so let's have some comments then. Sure, Councillor Johnston.
So I agree with your comment about the numbers and the capital, our 10-year capital forecast. But our 10-year capital forecast hasn't changed in 20 years except the snowball. We keep putting projects off because we don't have the money. And I think we're actually in better shape planning-wise than what we were many, many years ago. Some of you guys have been here for a number of years. We kind of just picked and choose. Now we actually have kind of a plan, and I think we're in much better shape that with our capital projects than what we used to be. But yeah, they've snowballed forever, and the snowball just keeps getting bigger.
And to sort of position my thinking here, I get it. The longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us at the bottom line, and the less the community benefits from it. And I think we all are interested in that community benefit part of this too, right? It does good things for our community. The challenge is that, and I guess I'm speaking out of school, Mark and I have seen, Councillor Nordham and I have seen the 10-year capital forecast, and it's making both of us nervous. So that's why I'm saying I think council deserves to see that forecast in an upcoming budget meeting so that you can appreciate the challenges, because it might change the way you look at this, to be honest. Okay, Councillor Andreessen, if I might.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Given the comments you've made about some concerns about the budget, should we defer this and have this conversation during budget deliberations, and give perhaps facilities a bit more time to prep numbers and that kind of thing? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there for consideration.
Okay, we're not too far off from our next budget meeting. Am I right? Yeah, it's coming up. That's what I remember. I'm not so good with the precision when, but I knew it's coming up. Mr. Romani.
At the Mayor Case the capital meeting is on, I believe, the 21st, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, next week we'll be operating. But I would encourage, as far as the recommendation goes, if we can get at least the support on applying for the fund, that to get the application in, it is kind of as going basis. So if we kind of get in the back of the queue, it could impair our ability.
So how much do you have to be able to submit in the application? Like, do you have to say, okay, we've got this $8 million concept. It's this level of drawings and stuff, and so we're meeting or complying with the grant requirements?
That's correct. One of the requirements is to have council endorsement.
Okay.
And along with the other documents that you've seen tonight.
Interesting. Councillor Rothwell and Councillor Duncan.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Ashton, for those comments. I'd be in favor to move forward with the first motion here this evening to give staff the ability to move forward. Because here's the issue: is that if the answer is no if we don't apply.
Right.
Frankly, I think that's silly. I think we should apply and just see where we go. We've been turned down before, and yes, it's terrible. We don't seem to be able to get away with funds often, but hopefully this will be a great opportunity, and I think it's worth it. And then staff could move forward to see where our number actually is to make sure that the Stool Memorial Pool or the pool would be, the swimming pool would be operational until such time as we get it built. And this is a long-term project, and we're in the business of long-term, whether it's roads, bridges. And again, as I said, I mean, the only other project I know that we dealt with was which was similar was the ball diamond lights in Moncton. They were 60 years old. They didn't notice a thing either. And yes, it was expensive to replace them. But this is something which families are relying on. And we talk about climate change, and we talk about things getting hotter and hotter. Well, you need a pool. And I think we struggled all during the pandemic with pools being closed and so on to a point. And I know this council struggled, previous council struggled with whether we should follow what the mandates were and so on, or whether we should buck the trend and so on. But that was not a mechanical issue. That was an operational issue, and we got through it. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the first resolution here this evening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durkin.
Yeah, I just want to, through you, Mayor, I just want to make a comment. We can go back to the 2025 budget as far as the repair dollars go, but we know we're going to have to spend the repair dollars regardless. You know, if it takes 5 years to get a new pool, we're going to have to keep the other one going. We know we're not going to shut it down. So I think the repair dollars are a given. We're going to have to spend them, even though, you know, it seems like throwing good money at bad.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Anyone else wanting to weigh in at this point? I have my reservations, but I'm happy enough. The motion's on the floor. Happy enough to consider it, and I understand the premise. I do. That staff needs our endorsement for them to proceed with an opportunity that could land us big bucks and that could be helpful. So I'm just publicly thinking it out. That's all. I think we do that sometimes. Anyone else with questions or comments? We have this moved. We have it seconded, right? I think we should have a vote. Let's do it. Oh, we have one more comment, Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And perhaps this is naive. Can the first part of this, that the council endorses the proposed design and completion as part of the 2025 budget discussion, can the endorsement be made contingent on the acquisition, or sorry, the procurement of the fund?
Grant, yeah, that's an interesting question. CEO Snell, what do you think? Because otherwise, have we committed ourselves to an $8 million spend plus, right?
I think, if I may, I think the commitment would be there, an $8 million spend, and the pool done in 2029, as an example. But if you do get that $4 million influx of money, then the pool becomes reality in 2027 or 2026 or whatever makes sense that way.
Okay, and that could hypothetically involve borrowing. Mr. Roman is not convinced. Okay, let's hear it.
Through your case, we'd have to do an analysis, but if we were to get the funding, it would accelerate the timeline. There's no question about that. The analysis we're looking at currently is looking at cash flows year over year, right, and kind of accumulating a balance that there's sufficient funds to have a capital outlay available in that year. If there's funds now to couple with that, that'll certainly accelerate the timeline. So associating that, if immediate use, that yes would need to be utilized, but it could save a couple of years.
And the consequences of a couple of years, which are inflated prices. So fair enough. All right. I think the motion is largely intact. So let's have the vote. And that is carried. And I think we look forward to the budget stuff coming up to see where that takes us. Okay. Yes, now we've made everyone uncomfortable. As item 9.2.2, council is advised of what appears to be a health and safety condition in the space rented by North Perth to the Ontario Provincial Police for a detachment office, with a recommendation that action be undertaken to investigate and remediate. Mr. Newell, you're still standing there. It's up to you to tell us what that's about.
Okay, so this is maybe less clear than the pool conversation we just had, and that's unfortunate. But the facility staff and contractors, we've been working with a problem of odor in the plumbing system down in the OPP area. It has been an ongoing problem for a number of years. We've replaced bathroom fixtures, we've installed ceiling fans, we've been working with plumbing contractors, and nothing seemed to solve the problem. So we are looking at doing some investigative work to figure out what the problem is. The problem is that pipes run under concrete floors and through ceiling cavities and up brick walls, inside brick walls. And so we don't know what the end game will be other than we need to find the problem and remediate the solution. So I've ballparked $50,000 as a potential cost, but I don't know until we get going. We could end up being 3 meters away from where we think the problem is, and we get it solved right away, and it's not a problem. It could be bigger, and I just don't know what it is. The important thing to realize that is it is a health and safety concern, and it's a repair that needs to be done. And we need to do it in order to look after our very important tenants that we've got here. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions or first comments? Oh, CEO Snow wants to weigh in too.
Just a reminder to that when we renovated this building back just prior to my arrival in 2009, it was mostly this side of the building that absorbed a great amount of the budget. We did some, I would just say, superficial cosmetic work on the outside and on the staff side, but that basement where we're having the problems was not touched at all, and so it's just 1968 original construction that we're dealing with, and it's again approaching that same sort of almost 60-year life cycle. And there are parts of this building that are that age.
Thank you. My question is sort of vaguely related is, given detachment changes and so forth, there might be a timeline for a new building or facility for the OPP. Did you want to comment on that? It doesn't perhaps change the issue of needing to try to remedy this, but I'm certainly interested in what happens and how soon.
So certainly we're, I guess, what I would say in the initial exploratory phases of looking at that. The detachment has grown to 20 officers as of right now, and we're expecting to have four more officers in sometime in 2025. So space again is becoming a limitation in this building. I was told at one time this building had 6 people in it when it was opened up in 1968. Well, we've got 24 police officers and I don't know how many staff upstairs. I haven't even counted. So we are again reaching a capacity limit, and so we're starting to look at with the OPP, starting to look at what alternate location as far as OPP accommodations would look like. We're in the very early stages, and council will be brought forward some more information, hopefully in early 2025, what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, any other questions, comments? Councillor Johnston.
I think we have to support this. Well, it's a health and safety issue, and we just hope that you find it quick and easy. And if you don't, then we let Ashton run his magic again.
Dude, I am buying you a hat and a gown and a wand at some point soon. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it has to. You know, It could be quite a teardown, though. There could be quite a bit of
Yeah,
disruption.
and we'll certainly keep council updated as well as we go forward. We just needed to start somewhere, so.
Okay, so I have a resolution. Let's consider it. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to proceed with investigation and remediation of the health and safety emergency plumbing concerns at the open heat attachment at 330 Wallace Avenue North in Listowel. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. All right, Councillor Anston records a manual in favor vote, and with that, that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Newell. Wasn't that fun? All right, let's move on to item 9.3 on our agenda. Item 9.3.1, staff from the County of Perth, which is the planning authority for North Perth, have identified that it would be appropriate to bring forward a series of changes to the North Perth zoning bylaw to harmonize same with current circumstances, many of which have been created by a stream of new legislation and regulation that we've experienced over 5 years. Before the zoning bylaw amendment is prepared for our consideration, planning staff wants to ensure that council would consent to the nature of changes that are being considered. And so I welcome Aubrey Erickson, the planning associate with the County of Perth, to introduce this matter. I think this is your first time before this council. Welcome.
I will just clarify, I'm covering for Aubrey Erickson today. My name is Moira Davidson. I'm the Senior Policy Planner for the County of Perth. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, for that introduction. I did change my hair and cut it off for you after you saw me last, so to be fair, I do look quite different. Apologies there. Without having to reiterate what Mayor Kasenberg brought before you, housekeeping amendment is a common practice in planning. As you know, the zoning bylaw, North Perth zoning bylaw, was adopted in 1999, and then there were frequent, I'll say, without going through every single one, frequent housekeeping amendments kind of made every couple of years, with the recent one happening in 2021. Now, since that time, there's been changes to various provincial policy, and then there's also been indication from building staff and planning staff of some changes that might need to be made to the zoning bylaw to make it more clear on what the policy is reading. Things like, there's definitions that aren't included or were accidentally omitted in the previous housekeeping. So those sorts of matters are something that a housekeeping amendment would address, and it's something that county staff are currently looking to or hoping to undertake for yourselves. So essentially, in summary, the majority of changes that would be proposed, they're somewhat minor in nature, and they would just serve to clarify and strengthen the interpretation and implementation of the North Perth zoning bylaw. So I would ask that council look to endorse the recommendations we have and kind of approve county staff to begin this housekeeping amendment process, which would involve consultation with staff and yourselves as well as with the public, and then also entertaining agency circulation and public meetings as required.
Okay, thank you. Questions, first comments? All right. So our intent is to basically grant consent to the county to make to bring forward some changes for us. Here's the resolution that North Perth Council receives a report dated November 4th, 2024, entitled Commencement of Housekeeping Amendment to the North Perth Zoning Bylaw 6-ZB-1999, and that North Perth Council authorizes county planning staff to initiate a housekeeping amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw 6-ZB-1999. Do we reference it as amended in this case or no? We often reference the zoning bylaw as amended.
To Mayor Kasenberg, it doesn't hurt to add that in.
Indeed. Thank you. Can I call for a meeting? Councillor Rothwell, move seconded by Councillor Gordon. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. That is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to visit with us tonight. Sorry I didn't recognize the new haircut. All right, let's consider a report from the Strategic Initiatives Department next under item 9.4 of our agenda. As item 9.4.1, authorization is sought for council to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Listowel Business Improvement Area. I believe this is a new proposed best practice, and we have our manager of strategic initiatives, Jessica McLean, with us to introduce this proposed agreement and its implications. Ms. McLean, welcome as always.
Thank you, Mayor Kisberg, and good evening, Council. So I have just a fairly quick report tonight. Staff had been working collaboratively with the BIA coordinator and the BIA board to develop a memorandum of understanding between the BIA and the municipality. So the purpose of this document is to ensure full and complete understanding of the responsibilities of the BIA board, BIA staff, as well as the municipality in the joint management and maintenance of the Listowel Business Improvement Area. The final draft MOU is attached to the council report for council's review and consideration. The document has been reviewed by the BIA Board of Directors, as well as municipal department heads that work directly with the BIA in delivering the various activities that they do. So staff are just looking for council authorization to move forward with executing this document. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Any questions or first comments on this matter? All right, let's look at the resolution here as follows: that the municipality of North Perth be authorized to enter into a memorandum of understanding or MOU with the Listowel Business Improvement Area, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the MOU included as an attachment to this report. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Anstiff. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Ms. McLean, for hanging on to this late hour. For item 10, that allows us to move past staff reports to item 10. Does any member of council wish to ask for a report from staff or a committee? Not seeing any expression of interest there. For item 11, we have received no additional items of correspondence beyond that already shared in the consent agenda for council's disposition. At this point, we turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight, we have 3 bylaws for consideration. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and their purpose. I think, yes, Clerk Klein.
Sorry, to you, Mr. Mayor, we just have to remove 12.3, the zoning bylaw amendment, as that was deferred by council.
Right, thank you. So let's take that out. So we have 2. We're down to 2. The option is available to any councillor who wishes to extract one of these 2 for further discussion. But if not, we can consider them in a single omnibus resolution. Anyone want to extract anything? All right, here we go. That the following bylaws are hereby passed: 97-2024 being a bylaw to amend the boards and committees appointments bylaw 147-2022, and 98-2024 being a bylaw to amend the procedure bylaw 106-2023. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion this evening? Seeing none, let's move to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I'm pleased to announce that here in North Perth, we're going to be hosting another event called Women of Distinction, and we'll be honoring 6 recipients of women who have provided leadership and great contributors to our community, and that will be this Saturday evening, November the 9th at the Lissel Egg Hall. This is also a fundraiser for United Way Perth Huron, and we're going to be celebrating these wonderful women and hosting it through Blue Jeans and Bling, which is our theme. So we just want to invite our residents to purchase tickets, which is available on the North Perth, or sorry, on the Perth Huron United Ways website. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else with announcements? Councillor Yurdo.
Thanks, Mayor Giesberg. As it's been mentioned, I just want to remind everyone that the operations budget meeting will be held on November 13th.
Thank you. I knew it was coming up. All right, everyone be there. Okay, any other announcements? Councillor Rothwell.
I just want to let council and public know that there'll be a remembrance service at the Atwood Cenotaph on this coming Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. I know Mayor Todd and I will be there. I suspect Councillor Duncan as well. I believe Councillor Johnson may not necessarily be available, but anyone that can attend, do so. And I'm sure on the following day, the Monday, things will be here in Listowel. So.
Indeed, and that's worth noting that the Community Remembrance Day in Listowel is on Remembrance Day at the usual time, and there's a fair amount of information online for that purpose. Councillors, if any of you come, you're certainly welcome to join us in the march from the beginning of the parade to the cenotaph. Okay, anyone else with announcements? Okay, let's move forward. We have one item to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I'm going to read the resolution that enables and explains our action to enter closed session. To those who are exiting, there's this mass exodus happening in the chamber. Thank you for coming tonight, and we appreciate your commitment. So the resolution as follows: the council proceeds in camera at 10:21 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding property described as concession 2, lot 22, part lot 21, Wallace, North Perth. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Councillor Richardson is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Okay, all those in favor? Let's turn to the vote here. Getting ahead of myself. And that is carried. Thank you. We're going to change the audiovisual settings and close the door to the council chamber, asking any who should not be here to exit at this point. Okay, we're testing to see if we're back. Okay, clerk thinks we're good to go. So, okay, we'll proceed then. Regarding item 16 on our agenda, Council did discuss the matter that was identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of Council. No staff direction was given pertaining to the matter. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meetings through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I'm going to read the enabling resolution for our confirmatory bylaw tonight as follows. Bylaw 100-2024, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, is hereby passed. Can I call for member Councillor Andreessen? Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, I saw that hand. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. We can bring Councillor Johnston back in. Thank you. Sure. You have a question? Sure.
Thank you, through you, John. This is probably for the clerk procedurally. When a councillor declares pecuniary interest in a confirmatory bylaw, but then the bylaw that they declared pecuniary interest in is removed and deferred, do they still need to leave? Just curious for future reference.
So through the mayor, thank you for the question. So it is contained within our procedure bylaw that a councillor who declared a pecuniary interest on any item on the agenda will leave the open meeting for the confirmatory bylaw as well. So council technically did make a decision on the item that Councillor Johnson declared a pecuniary interest on, and that they deferred the item. So yes, and it is also it's up to councillors to determine whether they have a pecuniary interest, and so. Yes.
Fascinating question. Thank you. That's great. Okay, councillors, we have completed deliberation and taken action on the business that came before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a motion to that effect as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 10:33 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, November 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. Councillor Anstep records a manual in favor vote. With that, we have unanimity about adjournment. The motion is carried. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, November 18th. There is a budget meeting on Wednesday, November 13th. Until that time, this council is adjourned.